And it's time for our pre-show. It's time for today's SY0-601 Security Plus study group. We're about 10 minutes, maybe 9 minutes now, away from starting. So I have got the stream going. Let's check audio, which looks really, really good. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. We've got video recording. There's my Cylons down there. That's good. There's, of course, immediately someone at my front door. That was quick. Like they waited right until I go live. Okay, he's live. Now let's hit the doorbell right now. So let me quickly look over at my mobile phone and let's see what's going on. And I don't see anything in particular. Yes, I do. But they're dropping off, so that's good. Okay. Mission accomplished. Oh, we've got all Security Plus today. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hey, chat room. Thanks for checking in. There's Maryland and Houston. So I am indeed one day closer to you. This is, it's not that crazy. I mean, if you look here, it is a little bit different here than it is here, but not much. I mean, you can sort of see the lights are on here. See how bright those lights are? You kind of see it on my hand. Another light over here. You can't see them because they're up here, but you can kind of see the spill right here, the little glowy part right here. It's not that you'd think, oh, your camera's dirty. No, that's just light. That's just the big light I have in front of me. I have a key light right there. And so that's what's going on. So it looks like it's really dark back there because it is really dark back there. I close all of the curtains. Everything in here has exactly the same setup every time I go live, which helps a lot with lighting and colors and everything else. I need to do more with the colors, but pretty good shape as far as that's concerned. Hello, Denver and Phoenix and Baltimore and Salt Lake City, Utah. Montreal is checked in. Bonjour. Good to have you here. Huntsville, Alabama is here as well. There's DC. Vegas is checked in. Hello, Jersey. The new Jersey, not the old Jersey. We've got Delaware and Queens and India and Yukon, CA. Oh, lots going on. Thanks for being here. Check it in. We've got Nebraska and Annapolis and Atlanta and California and Dublin, Ireland and Massachusetts and Bristol, UK, which is, as I've mentioned before, different than Bristol, Florida. It's dramatically different than Bristol, Florida. I got kinfolk there. Columbia, Miami. Good to see you. We've got lots of folks checking in. There's London. There's New York. There's Alberta. More Canadians. I'll let Mrs. Professor Messer know. The Canadians have checked in. She always wants to know. Let's make sure cameras look good. They do. Recording is going. It is. Now, why have I got a... Oh, okay. Those all look good on my screen. I'm going to do a quick check of these. Those all look good too. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hello, Panama and Tennessee and Kansas City and Nevada and Georgia and Philly. There's Missouri. St. Lumo is checked in. Kissimmee. There's folks in Orlando-ish area. South Orlando. Afghanistan and India and Panama City, Florida. Haven't been to PC in a while. I need to get over there. Oh, lots going on. This is all Security Plus today. All of our, well, at least the first half. First hour is Security Plus. The second hour is whatever questions you want to ask. They can be about Security Plus or they can really be about anything. So we'll see. We will see. Oh, yes, Oscar says, Oscar makes a good point that part of me wants to get into cybersecurity, but I also don't want to be the one everyone points their fingers at when a breach happens. That sort of comes with the territory. You know, eventually you will become more accustomed to that in cybersecurity. That's just one of those things that if you're doing your job and you've taken all the proper precautions and you're doing the right things, nobody can really blame you for anything that happens. Sometimes it's a 0 day. There was no way to prepare yourself against whatever was coming. There was a vulnerability that was just available to the bad guys. Well, that happens. The attackers go after those things. Benjamin already with the super chat. Thank you, Benjamin, here in the pre-show. We're starting in about 4.5 minutes. Benjamin says, Professor, taking my exam this Saturday. Your study material has been so helpful. I appreciate everything you've done and do. Your course notes have been essential in my studying. Well, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the $10 support for what we do here on the site. Best of luck with your exam Saturday. It sounds like it's Security Plus that you'll be taking. So we send you the best, all good feelings going your way when you get hit with study time. Make sure you grab those exam objectives. They should be your last checklist. It'll tell you if you're missing anything that happens to be on that list. Let me get some audio in my ear going a little bit better. There we go. We got Marcus that says, your videos and notes helped me pass Security Plus back late October, which led to landing a new position at the end of the year. Missed the office hours last month. Well, here we are in our study group office hours. This will be fun. We'll make this happen. It'll be something we can do as we're going through this. We got about 3 minutes to go, and we'll get started. This is not the show. Some people sometimes send me emails says I was going to watch the study group, but it was just the back of your head. So I said, well, you didn't watch long enough because the good stuff happens 10 minutes in. And then they come back, go, oh yeah, it's a completely different thing. You actually see you when we're doing the live stream. Yes, you do. We'll figure it out. Eric is speaking what we all think, feeling weak and uneasy. Studying for Security Plus seems really tough. It is really tough. Security is not a easy area to get into in IT, especially if you're just starting. I can only imagine how that must be. I got into security once I had years of experience in the industry in desktops, servers, networks. I sort of built up my resume with NetWare and Windows and Linux and Unix and mainframe operating systems and middleware and networking types and all kinds of things, and then eventually leveraged all of that to get into security. So I can only imagine how it is sort of jumping in. And that's why a lot of the material I create is with that in mind. I want to think some of these folks are just seeing this material for the first time. So how do you take these very, very complex ideas? VPNs alone, you could spend weeks diving into the details. Well, how do you take something that complex and bring it down into a level where everyone can understand the security concerns? It is a challenge, and Security Plus is an enormous exam. So it's just kind of how it works. Okay, let's get a few things set up here. We'll move this over here. We're going to move this over here. Although before I do that, now you got me running around because see that green right there? That's Mario. Thank you, Mario, for the $4.99 super chat. Mario says, passed my Security Plus. Right on. I love it. Congratulations on your new Security Plus. Thank you for the super chat. And it's one of those where I don't expect any super chats from you guys, but it is absolutely appreciated. It does keep the lights on. It does keep the motivation going. So I really do appreciate that part of it. Thank you. All right. What else have we got to do before we go live? Because I have less than a minute. Let's get the keynote running. I'm going to try to get the frog out of my throat. Ribbit, ribbit. That's not working so well. And that goes there, and this goes here. I think we're in pretty good shape, everybody. I think it's time to make this live stream happen. As soon as the clock hits the top of the hour, we can do that. Me. La. Okay, we'll see how this goes. I have a feeling I'm going to have a problem here with this throat. Okay, it is top of the hour. Before we get started, I want to thank Mr. Winmore in the chat room with the $10 super chat, who says, thank you so much, Professor. Your content has been a godsend. Got Network Plus in September, A Plus in December. now working towards Security Plus. That is strong. Congratulations on the first two. Best of luck with that last one, because that's Security Plus. It's a big one. Let's see what we can do to get a live stream going, everybody. We've got recordings going. I need to put up a graphic, and here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2023 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. This is where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA Exam Objectives for the SY0-601 exam. We're going to see how well we know everything we need to know to be able to pass this Security Plus exam. Plus, we have some tips and tricks along the way. I'll ask you questions in this first hour, and in the second hour, I'm going to ask you some information that comes directly from the exam objectives, and then we'll have you ask questions in the chat room as well. I'll be glad to answer those. You can, of course, if you are here live, we would love for you to join along with us. You can pop open a new browser window and go to the link right here, professormesser.com/QA. And you can also get an app for this. The app is called the Socrative Student app. If you do use the app, it asks for a room name. That room name is the word Professor Messer, all one word. So make sure you spell it right, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you've done that right, there will indeed be a question waiting for you. That question asks, which of the following would, now why do I have a different set of questions? This is already hit. This is the right question, but that's not what you're seeing on your side. So that is one where I have something wrong, something horribly, horribly wrong has happened with the questions that are online. Let me quickly jump ahead. So that one works. So for some reason, my first question on my list did not work. So what you're seeing online to answer the questions has nothing to do with the question that is in front of us. That's not going to work very well. So here's what we'll do. We'll do this one that I have in front of me. So ignore that on your screen. We're just going to jump over here to this one. There. Problem solved. See, it's a live stream, everybody. That's what we do. Everybody's like, I remember that. This is indeed a question from a previous study group. Our very first question of our study groups is always a rewind question to make sure that you can get in, see the questions, answer the questions. You'll know exactly what's here. We will come back to this question in a moment, but let me, for everybody listening in, the question on your screen asks, which of the following would best describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Is it symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, hashing, or out of band? Now, we'll come back to this question, but of course, you answer this question online. Follow that link, professormesser.com/QA. Please don't answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Everybody's saying, hey, somebody call Lori because the professor needs backup. You don't even know, Joseph. You have no idea the amount of backup I need. We're going to come back to that question in just a moment. In the meantime, I want to welcome you. Thanks for being here. We do one of these study groups every month. Of course, when we're not here, we have our entire course online at professormesser.com/YouTube. Make sure that you go through the entire set for Security Plus so that you cover every single one of those objectives. Also, we have a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. I post that, of course, to my email list. If you haven't joined the email list, there's a link on my homepage that will get you added to that email list. I also post them to Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, and I post them to Instagram as well with a pretty picture. So go to professormesser.com/Instagram, and there's even a hashtag on those so you can find the Security Plus questions very, very easily. As I mentioned, this content for this study group is all coming from the SY0-601 exam objectives. You can always download the objectives right here at professormesser.com/objectives. The exam, as we are looking at it today, is the SY0-601. This was an exam that was released in November the 12th of 2020 to be exact. And it's an exam that will probably still be around until May of 2024. That's quite a long time. But that at least gives you an idea of just how long this single exam is going to be here. We also want to let you know that it's a single exam. You don't have to take multiple exams to earn your Security Plus. It's that single exam, and it's 90 minutes long. There's a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions on that list. And the exam itself, you need to score a 750 on an interesting scale that ranges between 100 and 900. So it's an unusual measuring system, granted, but don't worry so much about the details of how the grading is done. We don't know how the grading is done, and CompTIA isn't planning to tell us. What you should focus on is just making sure you know everything from the exam objectives. You'll get a mix of different kind of questions on your exam. One of them is multiple choice-based questions, very similar to the multiple choice-based question we just did, and performance-based questions, and we'll talk more about performance-based questions in just a moment. Of course, as many of you know, my entire Security Plus course is available online for you to watch for free. You don't have to register anything. There's nothing behind a paywall. I don't put some of the videos out, not others. No, everything is there. The entire video course is posted online. There are, of course, folks that would like course notes. You would like practice exams. Maybe you'd like downloadable versions of the videos or the audio. I have different bundles available on my website. You can find out more about that with my success bundle for the Security Plus exam at professormesser.com/601SB. That's 601SB for the Security Plus Success Bundle, SB. So this is where, when you start getting into the details of these study groups, you'll find that we do have audio replays available. They're distributed in podcast form. If you want to add this to your podcast listening program, you simply need to visit our podcast link at professormesser.com/podcast, and you'll find study group replays there for our A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups. There's also a video replay of this live stream available immediately afterwards on YouTube. It's just posted there automatically. When you look through the list of the YouTube video description, you may notice that there are timestamps that appear about a day afterwards. And these are timestamps that are done automatically through my marketing manager, Lori. We've already talked about Lori. Lori is responsible and has handled putting these timestamps in for years on these videos so that you can find exactly what you're looking for immediately after hitting one of these videos. Make sure you have a look at that YouTube video description and the entire channel. It's available at professormesser.com/YouTube. And watch, you haven't subscribed already, you should certainly go there and subscribe. Hit the bell. You'll know exactly when we do one of these live streams. It's a great way to be notified. When we are not doing a live stream, we have a live chat available. Make sure you check out our chat at professormesser.com/Discord. Discord is the service we use for our chat, and usually myself and many, many others, especially folks studying for Security Plus, find a lot of great material there. You can also talk back and forth amongst each other. It is open to the public, so you're welcome to show up there. No charge. There's no cost. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to register with my site. You just have to have a Discord login, which you probably already have. Go to professormesser.com/Discord to join us. I'll also let you know that if you live in the U.S., Canada, or some U.S. territories, that eventually you're going to need to take this exam, and you could, of course, go to the CompTIA website and pay full price. But why would you do that? What you want to do is get a discounted price to take your exam, and you can find a built-in discount already available. You don't need a discount code. You don't need a coupon code. You don't need an extension in your browser. You simply need to visit professormesser.com/vouchers, where you will get a discounted voucher on that page. We can also tell you that if you buy a voucher on my site, I'll give you a little bit more. I'll give you a free copy of my CompTIA Exam Hacks book. This is a book that you can't buy. You only get this book with a Success Bundle purchase or when you're purchasing a voucher. This contains tips, tricks, and exam hacks that can help you study for the exam, and perhaps more importantly, during the exam, give you some strategies that might give you some extra points. And sometimes those extra points is the difference between passing and failing. So make sure you look over the tips. I've accumulated these through an entire career in IT of taking 20 to 25 different certification exams in my career. So hopefully that's something that can help you if you're working towards that. Unfortunately, the vouchers right now only available in US and Canada. Hopefully in the future, I'll be able to get some different kinds of vouchers available. Unfortunately, that's what we have now. Before we go back to that question I asked earlier, I want to talk about some super chats that came in. Denise with the $20 super chat who says, hello, Professor. Thank you so much for your content. Passed the Security Plus, started my first job in risk management. That's what we like to see. We like to see getting the certification. We love to see it when that certification happens to be someone getting a job or getting a better job. That's what we do this for. That is our primary mission statement. We make this content so that you can get a job or get a better job. And Denise has done exactly that. Congratulations on Security Plus. Congratulations on your new position. And thank you so much for your support with the $20 super chat. Also want to thank Kurt with the $5 super chat who says, hi, Professor Messer. Passed my Security Plus this last December with the help of your videos and course notes. Best in the new year. Thank you, Kurt. And congratulations on your Security Plus. Thank you so much for your support of the site as well. Let's see how that question looked. We were looking at this earlier. The question again asked, which of the following would describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Is that symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, hashing, or out of band? Well, it's interesting that I don't actually have for you the answer on my screen other than telling you what it happens to be. What would describe a key exchange occurring beyond the scope of the network? Let's see how you answered this. 63% of you say it is out of band. And we certainly have, as we are looking through all of the different things that we're doing, we have almost single digits for the rest of them. It's 12%, 9%, and 8%. So it's almost a four-way tie for second place between symmetric, certificate, perfect forward secrecy, and hashing. So we have a number of different options here, but really everybody focused on out of band. Out of band key exchange is probably one of the most important cryptographic discoveries of our generation. It allows us to be able to discern a private key on two sides of a conversation without actually sending that key across the network. And obviously, there are enormous security advantages to having a key derived on both sides, but not actually sending that key to each other. It's almost magical in the way that it works, but that's something that we do every day. Whenever you hear Diffie-Hellman, which is one of the most, probably the most used key exchange method that you will run into, Diffie-Hellman is a way that you can discern a key on two sides of a conversation without sending that key across the network. There are also a number of other different ways to do this. But as you go through your studies for Security Plus and you're thinking, I remember talking about Diffie-Hellman, that's why. Diffie-Hellman is so incredibly important to what we do. That is a question that comes from a previous study group, and 63% of you were spot on. You remembered exactly how that works and where that comes from. So that is our rewind question to see that you were able to get in, answer the questions, do exactly what you needed to do to answer that one. You got this one spot on. Let's move on to another kind of question. This is a multiple choice based question. I ask a question and there are multiple choices to select from. Those multiple answers that are there give you a chance to answer the question correctly, even if you don't actually know the answer. Because you could have guessed. You could have simply, I'll just choose E. It's 20% chance for getting it right for this particular question. If there's only 4 options, you got a 25% chance of getting it right. So CompTIA realizes this and says, let's make the exam a little bit more challenging. In the first part of the exam, we're going to give you a handful of questions. That handful of questions is going to be questions that come from the exam objectives, but they're not presented as a standard method of multiple choice question. In fact, they're anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be putting you in a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. They might be putting things in a particular order where you have to sort them. Maybe it's a drag and drop question. But everything about these performance-based questions are topics that come from the exam objectives. And as I often tell people, if you know the exam objectives cold, if you've really understood everything that's in the exam objectives, doesn't matter how they ask the question, you're going to be able to answer it just fine. So let's see what our performance-based question of the month happens to be. And perhaps more importantly, does it match what you're about to see on your screen? And in this case, it actually does. We're back synced up, everybody. Let's hope that's the end of it. This question asks, what secure protocol should be used for these tasks? And I'll remind everyone, you want to answer the question by using the link at the bottom of your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We are going to go through all 5 of these. This one is a fill in the blank. So I'm asking you for a reasonable secure protocol that would be used for these tasks. And here are the 5 tasks. The first one is securely set the time and date on network devices. What secure protocol should be used for that task? The second on the list is query directory services over an encrypted channel. The third is encrypt all traffic sent over a VoIP telephone call. The fourth is create an encrypted tunnel for remote access. And the last one is a user digitally signs all emails sent to another user. So you have those 5 different tasks. What is the secure protocol that you would use? And there might be multiple answers for some of these, and I'll accept multiple answers for some of these if the answer is correct. Again, for those of you listening in, what secure protocol should be used for these tasks? We want to securely set the time and date on network devices, query directory services over an encrypted channel, encrypt all traffic sent over a VoIP telephone call, create an encrypted tunnel for remote access, and a user digitally signs all emails sent to another user. So this is one where you don't get to pull from a list. There is no matching in this one. This is a fill in the blank. Now, to be fair, it's remarkably unusual to see a fill in the blank question on the Security+ exam. So I'm making this one a little bit harder than it normally is, but you're going to need to remember the secure protocols that are listed in the CompTIA exam objectives, or the secure protocol that perhaps you're thinking of, and we'll put it into this list of these 5 different topics. We'll have to see what you think the answer was, because I have a list of what I think the answers are, and you're going to tell me if they match. We'll see if they match. And you can, of course, tell me if you have another option, because there might be more than one answer for one of these. I have to see what this is. If you're working in security, knowing secure protocols is pretty important. So I think that's a pretty important thing to do. That, of course, is once we get into this, how we can really focus on some of these things. In the chat room, couldn't the last answer when we were talking about an out-of-band key exchange be symmetric key exchange? Well, a symmetric key just means you're using the same key on both sides, but it doesn't describe how you get the key across the network, or from get the same key on both sides of the network. So let's say the question was, how in which of these would describe using a symmetric key that does not traverse the network? So that's another way to do it. So I often talk about, you put the key in a briefcase, you handcuff the briefcase to your wrist, you carry the briefcase to the other person, you unlock the briefcase, and you give them the symmetric key. That's one way to do it. That's an out-of-band key exchange. But that's a symmetric key. So that's the way it does it. In fact, the Diffie-Hellman is a symmetric key. Once the key exchange is done, it uses asymmetric encryption to create a symmetric key. It's in the video. There's a lot to talk about there. Let's see how you did with this one. We'll come back to that one in the after show if you'd like. I'd be more than happy to drill down into it, to show you some key exchange information, to look at Diffie-Hellman and break some things down. It's some good stuff there. So, and indeed, it's kind of weird when you think about it the first time, like, how does Diffie-Hellman, how does that even work? How does it even happen? Asymmetric encryption in general is a mystery to most of us. It's really remarkable. So we'll see how we can break that out in the after show if you'd like to do that. This question, though, let's step through all 5 of these different tasks and see which one of these you would like to use. Let's start with the very first one, which says securely set the time and date on network devices. Well, you may be thinking, well, setting a time and date is something that practically all of our systems do automatically using NTP, the Network Time Protocol. So NTP does have a secure flavor, a secure version of NTP, and that's called NTP-Sec. And that is the secure version of the Network Time Protocol. So if you needed to, for some reason, make sure that the time synchronization on your network is secure. And I guess there are cases where that's incredibly important, especially in military type environments. So if you are working in those types of environments, NTPsec might be something you want to look into. Second on our list is query directory services over an encrypted channel. Well, there's a number of different ways to do this, but directory services indicates maybe we're using Active Directory. So there might be an Active Directory component to this. But there also could be other types of directory services. One of the most popular directory services that's not Microsoft related would be LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. And there is a secure flavor of the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol called LDAP-S. The S is for savings. No, the S is for secure. That's what that is. LDAP-S is what we were looking for to query a directory service over an encrypted channel. It's kind of a fancy way to say it's just encrypted communication. We're just scrambling everything and sending it across the network, and LDAP-S allows us to do that securely. If you're querying something in LDAP, LDAP is something probably everyone should be encrypting. You should always be using LDAP-S to make that happen. Next on our list, number 3, encrypt all traffic sent over a VoIP telephone call, and we would use real-time protocol, but the secure version of real-time protocol, which is SRTP. Normally, if you're not encrypting, it's just RTP. That's the communication going back and forth. We used to capture those packets on an RTP communication, capture them with Wireshark. You can have Wireshark replay the audio communication. So if you don't want someone to capture your packets and be able to listen in to your conversation, which is probably in some cases can be completely legitimate, in other cases perhaps an illegal situation, but one way you can avoid any of this is to encrypt your voice communication, your VoIP communication, using SRTP for the secure real-time protocol. Fourth on our list is to create an encrypted tunnel for remote access. We had an encrypted channel up top that talked about directory services, but this one's really talking about remote access. That's a very broad term, remote access. So you probably have a number of different answers on this one. The one that I would immediately move to as probably the most popular would be IPsec. This is what we use to be able to set up these encrypted tunnels, usually between routers or firewalls, to be able to have an encrypted channel between remote sites. So we could, for example, have all of our remote sites on the internet, which of course is a publicly available network. We don't know who gets to see the traffic. Anyone could look at traffic going across the internet. We'd have no idea how to protect it. So instead of sending our traffic in the clear across the internet, we'll instead create an IPsec tunnel so everything is encrypted between site A and site B. Even if somebody did capture that traffic, they wouldn't be able to see anything inside of it. It looks like a bunch of scrambled eggs. They don't know what's going on inside of those communications. The packet themselves, you can see a header and then nothing else after that. And then lastly, a user digitally signs all emails sent to another user. Digitally signing all emails, digital signature is a pretty important one to be able to do that. So the digital signature that you might use that is, or the method, the protocol that makes it very secure is something that's commonly built into mail clients. That is the secure multi-purpose internet mail extensions. We never call it that. We just say SMIME. So you're running SMIME, you can have this integrated into your mail system and be able to click a button to digitally sign an email or click a button to encrypt the email or do both at the same time. So that is what we would use to digitally sign all emails sent to another user. So the only one I think I probably would put multiple protocols in is that fourth one, create an encrypted tunnel for remote access, because things like remote desktop protocol does encrypt data. VNC has the ability to encrypt data. We've got other remote access methods that can encrypt data. But in SSH, you've got and other secure protocols to do this. But if you're talking about remote access, that's sort of where it ends right there. If you're trying to gain remote access to a system, commonly we're thinking of VPN. So VPNs would use IPsec VPN or maybe an SSL VPN. Those are two of the most common anyway. And I would accept those or any of those others that fits the idea of an encrypted tunnel for remote access. I put up IPsec, but you can put up one that you're aware of or familiar with, but make sure it's one that's listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. Won't help you to know things that are outside the objective list at all. So we'll have to figure out what that might be, what the different options are to be able to work through these. I don't know that I have the right information on my screen right now. I'm going to look at our next question real quick. Yes, I am looking at the right thing. So hopefully I am synced up. So let's shift gears. Oh, before we shift gears from our performance-based question to our multiple choice questions, our performance-based question here, you could have gotten more than one of these right. You could have gotten some wrong. It could be partially right and partially wrong. So one of the questions that was asked earlier is, do you get partial credit? CompTIA has listed on their website that some of the questions on the exam could possibly be given partial credit, but they also say they might not be. So they've given an absolute maybe. They have told us beyond a shadow of a doubt that perhaps we might look into maybe giving you partial credit on a question. You'll just never know if that happens. So again, don't worry so much about the grading process. You have no control over it. You have no knowledge of it. You will never have control of it. You will never have knowledge of it. So don't worry about the grading process. You should instead drill into the questions, understand what they're asking, get as many correct as possible. The total grade will figure itself out when you're done. So unfortunately, that's just the way that many of these industry exams work. This isn't just a CompTIA thing. It works the same whether you're taking a Cisco exam or a Microsoft exam or a VMware exam or a Red Hat exam or anything else. Just the way it goes in this industry. Let's shift gears and do another question. This time, let's do a multiple choice based question. I have a multiple choice based question that has popped up on your screen already, and it asks, a U.S. federal government agency is using a 6-step process for information security. Which of the following would best describe this framework? Would it be NIST RMF, SSAE SOC2 type 1/2? Would it be a CySA CCM? Would it be ISO IEC 27001? Or would it be CIS-CSC? All of these literally are in your exam objectives, and you have to know what the focus is of each one of these. I will not go into every acronym that is here in the answer. We're going to focus just on which one is right, but I would highly recommend, if you're looking through this list and wondering, are these made up? Is this not a real thing? Nope, these are real things. It is not made up. We made sure that the answers were realistic, at least, even if they weren't accurate to the question that was being asked. So make sure you know what all these are. You should be able to look at any one of those and think, okay, that is this type of framework, and this is how it would be used. So another good example of where we would focus on. But we'll see. Maybe you already know the answer. Maybe you've already plugged it in and everybody knows what it is, and the answers will be 100% of you got the correct answer. Well, we're going to find out in just a moment. Make sure you lock in your answer by visiting ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer, and as always, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This is really a great way to kind of learn more about these topics. I often find that even when I get a question wrong, it prompts me to go back and look at all of the other answers to really understand what the differences are between them. I'll also say that as you get into this, you'll also find that a number of you know what some of these are, but not the others. So it might prompt you to go back and study specific items. I often mention the exam objectives are just a big checklist, and they're in there. So make sure you're familiar with that checklist. Let's see how you did with this one. This question asks, a U.S. federal government agency is using a 6-step process for information security. Which of the following would best describe this framework? Is it NIST RMF, SSAE SOC 2 type 1/2? Is it CSA CCM? Is it ISO IEC 27001? Or is it CIS-CSC? So immediately in this question, you can tell the focus is using a 6-step process. And another focus on this one is a U.S. federal government agency. So you should be able to take those two pieces of information, kind of put them together and think, what would a U.S. government agency use to and as a framework that is 6 steps? And there happens to be a standard for this that's very common in the U.S. federal government, and that is the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, their RMF, the Risk Management Framework. You'll often see it abbreviated just as RMF, and you can download the NIST RMF from this. If we look and see how we answered this one, did we get NIST RMF? 56% of you. You guys did great on this question. 21% said ISO IEC 27001, and then we have a 3-way tie for third place with SSAE SOC 2, CSA CCM, and CIS CSC with 8 and 7% respectively. So if you happen to look at the NIST information, you'll notice, in fact, I have a copy of it here. Someone was asking about the specifics. This is indeed NIST special publication 800-37. That is the NIST RMF. That is what you would use. As you can see here, it's mandatory for U.S. federal agencies if you are handling federal data. I don't know why you would not be handling federal data if you're a U.S. federal agency. If you look at the details, this is free to download. There are 6 different steps, 6 different processes. They do update this from time to time. When I made this, it was 6. Sometimes it's 7, depending on the version that you'll see. Sometimes it's 5. It has had many different changes through the years, and it will continue to change and continue to update itself through the years. Make sure you have a look at that. A lot of great security stuff on the NIST site, by the way. If you're trying to find a set of processes and procedures and something to guide you through your cybersecurity career, this has a lot of really good information. Even though it is very focused on the U.S. federal government, much of these topics and much of these standards can apply outside of the scope of the federal government as well. Now, we've looked at some of these NIST requirements, like password requirements. There's a lot of confusion over what you should be doing versus what people are doing. And I would highly recommend that you have a look and read through these standards. It will really help you quite a bit to have this here. This is the go-to standard for the folks in the U.S. federal government, kind of set a baseline of what these risk management frameworks would be. Make sure you have a look at it. It's on the NIST site. Plenty to see as we go through this list. So you can see here, because this is U.S. federal government and a 6-step process, that should have really focused you immediately down to the NIST RMF. There are other frameworks on here that might be good to know. For example, the ISO IEC 27001 has a lot of great information inside of it, but that is a broad worldwide standard. It's not something that is specific to a U.S. federal government agency. I don't believe it has 6-step processes in there either. So would not be exactly what we were looking for in that particular case, but still all of these, as I mentioned, are things you should know. If you don't know them, I have an entire video of them, the SY0-601 section 5.2 of your exam objectives, and the video you're looking for is a video called Security Frameworks. And I can give you more information on the NIST RMF. But you guys did pretty well already. 58% of you got this one absolutely right. So not a problem if you are trying to work out this particular issue. 60% is a pretty good number. So congratulations on getting that answer. Let's do another multiple choice based question. This multiple choice based question asks, which type of threat actor commonly gains unauthorized access to a system without any knowledge of the underlying exploit? Would that be nation state, shadow IT, insiders, script kiddies, or competitors? Which type of threat actor commonly gains unauthorized access to a system without any knowledge of the underlying exploit? Is it nation state, shadow IT, insiders, script kiddies, or competitors? Now, I want the best answer on this one. This one could have more than one right answer, though. So let's see if you happen to know what this answer is. See, as we go through it. This is one where knowing all of these different actors, these threat actors, are important on the exam. They all, of course, come from the exam objectives, so make sure you're familiar with those. Go through the list, see which one makes the most sense. This should probably said of the following, which would be the best to choose. But indeed, that's sort of the overarching requirement for the entire exam. So that's what I would recommend you do as well. As always, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You want to follow the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. That's what we're looking for. See if you happen to know what this one is. A lot of you already locked in your answer, so it makes me think that maybe some of you are doing pretty good with this one. Let's see how it goes as you step through all of this. This is really a challenge if you're looking through the list of threat actors, but you've never seen these before. Make sure you're familiar with them. This will be a good one to break through and figure out. Let's see how you did. The question again asked, which type of threat actor commonly gains unauthorized access to a system without any knowledge of the underlying exploit? Is that a nation state, shadow IT, insiders, script kiddies, or competitors? Well, let's see what you think the answer is. We'll show the results, and we can see that 65% of you say it is script kiddies, 14% say it's insiders, 13% said shadow IT, and then 7% said nation state, and only 1% said competitors. Now, I guess it could be argued that the answer we were looking for could actually be multiples of these if the person performing this exploit is just not very smart. So it could be, what if it's somebody at a nation state that doesn't know what they're doing? What if it's somebody at shadow IT that has no clue what they're doing? What if it's an insider that has no clue what they're doing? But that, of course, is not the common answer. It's not what you would commonly find for this. Indeed, the common answer would be script kiddie. Someone who's just running a script. They aren't really sure what the script does. They've just been given the script and says, this script can break into a machine. Okay, well, what's it doing? I don't know. But I'm going to run it on this machine to see if it can actually find that particular vulnerability and exploit it. So these pre-made scripts, the person running it really has no idea what the script or the exploit happens to be doing. It could be someone on the inside of your network. It could be somebody on the outside of your network. But even in both cases, we would probably label them a script kiddie to be able to make that happen. It's not very sophisticated because they have no idea how it works. Of course, it's not going to be sophisticated. And usually it's someone who's not getting funding, or the motivation to do this is not coming from an external entity. It's really somebody just trying to break into a system to be able to make that happen. Sometimes they just like the game. They just like to see if they can break into a system. And I will tell you, not a smart game to play. Not with the laws dealing with wiretapping, breaking into systems, hacking, and the other federal issues that you will run into when doing something like this. That's what we're looking for, is to be able to find what we need, run the script. We have no idea how it works, but indeed, script kiddies is exactly what we were hoping to find. That is the right answer, and indeed, we had 66% of you say, yep, that's what we think it is as well. And you'd be absolutely correct with this one. It would be a script kiddie. Now, it would not be a nation state. Nation state, commonly, they have a goal. They have a lot of money. They know exactly what they're doing. Usually the exploits from a nation state are incredibly complex, and they wrote them themselves. So that would not be the case where they were gaining access without knowledge of the underlying exploit. Shadow IT, generally someone with shadow IT is smart enough to know what's going on under the scenes as well. So that's not what we would have to worry about. Insiders, not the issue either. That usually isn't someone who's just running an exploit without any knowledge. They actually have a lot of knowledge of this. And lastly, competitors. Competitors have a very specific set of goals and objectives. They know exactly what it's doing. In this case, the type of threat actor gaining unauthorized access to a system without any clue of how the underlying exploit works. That is the definition to a T of a script kiddie. Answer D. That's 66% of you got that one absolutely correct, because that is the absolutely correct answer. Now, one of the things as you step through and work with some of these things on the exam is it is a broad exam. There are a lot of different topics on this exam. And I tell people all the time to make sure you go through the entire set of exam objectives. That's not always possible. I get it. That's not something you can always do. So what I've done was take everything from my videos and I put them all into a single document. The single document is my course notes. And this is the biggest set of course notes I've ever created because the Security+ exam is the single largest exam that I think CompTIA has. It is enormous. There are other exams that are very big, but for some reason, this one is just a monster. These set of course notes have all of the important text, all of the important graphics, all of the important images from my videos. I still would recommend you go through all 177 videos in all 21 hours, but not everybody has time to do that. Instead, you may want to focus on something that can help you kind of collapse everything into one place. So for example, I have on my screen my course notes. This is the digital PDF version. The PDF version contains the text and the graphics just the same, exactly the same as the book itself. So you can of course go to the printed book and you will see it matches everything that is on the set of the PDF that you're seeing there. So exactly the same thing, but it is just in a printed format. And if you purchase the printed version, what we call our physical edition, you get the digital edition PDF for free. If you get the PDF version, you can download it immediately. So absolutely where you should go if you're somebody who's really working through these. It is very, very useful to be able to have everything in one place. It doesn't replace the videos. It doesn't replace a book. It doesn't replace a lot of the other study materials you should be using, but it's a great way to summarize everything in one single place that you can take with you wherever you happen to go. Find out more about this at professormesser.com/601cn for our course notes. You could also go to the Professor Messer website. Just follow the links on your screen for Security+, and you can have a look at the course notes there as well. It's also a great way to help support what we do here at the site, and we sure appreciate your support every single day. Let's do some more questions. I've got another one here. This question, hopefully you've been doing some studying for your 601. This one asks, which type of computing manages some data locally instead of processing all data on a cloud service? Would that be SaaS, fog computing, hashing, load balancing, or IoT? What type of computing manages some data locally instead of processing all data on a cloud service? Would that be SaaS, fog computing, hashing, load balancing, or IoT? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Right there on the screen, lock in your answer, what it happens to be. This is managing data, knowing where the data is, knowing how the applications are working, knowing how they transfer data from point A to point B is an important thing to know as a security professional because you're responsible for protecting all of that data. You need to protect it at rest. You need to protect it in transit. You need to protect it in use. And you need to be able to make sure you're able to do that regardless of where the data happens to be. So your first step when you're trying to do this is knowing where the data is. That's not always an easy thing to know, especially in our world where most of this communication is encrypted. And if it's encrypted, how are we supposed to perform a packet capture and know where it's going? Kind of the best we have is IP addresses at that point. And maybe that's what we use. Very often, if it's an application we deploy to the cloud, maybe it's one that we can get more information on the cloud side. Maybe we talk to the developers. Maybe it's something we do in our own local data center. Maybe it's an application that runs on a mobile device. We have to know where the data is. So see if you happen to know this one, because we need to understand how the data is processed and where it happens to live if we have any hope for securing it. This question again, which type of computing manages some data locally instead of processing all data on a cloud service? So you have things like SaaS, fog computing, hashing, load balancing, or IoT. What is it? What does it happen to be? Maybe we can find it in this list. Let's see what you answered. I'm going to show the results, and you can see that we aren't quite sure. We didn't get a majority on this one, but we got a plurality of you answered answer B, fog computing. 44% of you chose fog computing. That's a pretty good number. We also have 24% of you that say load balancing is what you would use. We've got 19% that say SaaS or SaaS. We've got 10% that say IoT and 3% that say hashing. So when we get into these and start trying to look at all of the data that an application might collect, especially applications we're using maybe in a car or in our home, there's no reason to send all of that data off to the cloud. What if it's an application that is capturing data and logging it hundreds of times a second? Is it really necessary to send all of that data back up to the cloud? Probably not. But there may be a good reason to maybe process some of that information more locally than sending everything back out to a cloud-based service. So to be able to do that, we would use something like cloud computing. And that cloud computing would have a middle ground. If the clouds are up high and you're down here on the ground, right in the middle where you would process that data would be a fog. That's the fog that has come down to where you are. The local data that you're working with would be fog computing. So very commonly associated with Internet of Things, but not always associated with Internet of Things. It's one that can also be associated with other types of architectures as well. I think about a car. Think of all the data that your car is collecting as you're driving down the road. Just looking at the wheels. Don't even look at the rest of the car and the engine and all the pressures and measurements that we're getting from inside the engine. Let's just look at the wheel, one wheel. And as that wheel is rotating down the road, as you're driving this car, you could be collecting thousands of data points in a single second. Well, do you really need to send 1,000 data points every second up to some cloud-based service? You don't. But those thousands of data points that we are collecting are used locally by your car to determine if you're skidding, if you are needing to change the way that your automatic braking system is going to work properly. That is incredibly important. But once we use that data, once a second goes by, we don't really need to use that data anymore. We might need to roll that up and say at a certain time and a certain date, the ABS kicked in. Well, maybe that message is sent to the cloud, but we don't need to send all of the raw data that ultimately caused the ABS to start in the very first place. So we don't have to worry about latency. We don't have to send a lot of data out over into the cloud. So there's no requirement for bandwidth. We don't have to worry about somebody else getting a hold of our data. So it's even protecting it a little more by having it in the fog instead of at the cloud. And if you really, really want to do long-term analysis, what if somebody really wants to go through and look at detailed millisecond by millisecond breakdowns of the data? You could if you were collecting it somewhere locally to you in the fog. That is fog computing. That's what you would use. And indeed, as you were somebody working through this, fog computing is exactly what we were hoping to see. If you were trying to manage some data locally instead of processing all data in the cloud, the best explanation in the list that we have here is indeed the one that got the plurality of the answer. 45% of you chose answer B, fog computing, and you would be absolutely correct. 23% said load balancing, and load balancing is not really computing type. It is a way to manage the load, especially very busy networks, but it's not really talking about where the data is being processed. It's talking about making sure that systems aren't overloaded. So load balancing would not be the right answer for this particular question. We have 19% of you that said SaaS, the software as a service, which I think for a lot of people, they just see SaaS and that's the default answer. It seems to be that's where I know what SaaS is. That's what I'll choose. But in this particular case, that describes the way that an application is deployed or the way a cloud service is deployed. It doesn't talk about where the data is processed in that cloud service. Fog computing does talk about where the data is processed. And we've got load balancing, we've got 9% said IoT, and we've got 4% that say hashing. It would not be IoT, Internet of Things, although IoT could send data into the fog, but it doesn't have to be only IoT that does that. And IoT itself describes a type of device. and strategy of deploying those devices. It doesn't describe where the data is actually examined and analyzed. And lastly, we have hashing. Hashing is certainly important for protecting data, for digital signatures, for verification of file transfers, but hashing does not describe where data is processed. So that would not be the right answer either. The only answer here that makes any sense is indeed fog computing. 45% of you got that one absolutely correct. We usually, when we step through these questions and figure out the details, we do like to go through every single one of them and break them down. So hopefully that's giving you some insight into fog computing, and you can think about scenarios around that. Might help you when you get into the exam situation. If you're watching these videos for continuing education unit credit, or CEU, which means you probably already have your CompTIA certification, or perhaps you're using the CEU for other purposes, I would be glad to send you an email certifying that you watched 1 hour of this webinar category, CEU. The way that you would do that, you have to follow these instructions to earn that email. Is you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link at the top or the bottom. In that Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address. In the subject line, please put that it is the January 2023 Security Plus Study Group. And then in the body of the message, on a line by itself, where there's nothing else on the line but this particular secret code word of the month, that code word is fog computing. Fog computing is our super secret code word of the month. Put that on a line by itself. And then if you'd like to put other things into that message, I do read through every single one of these, and I do like to read the messages you put in. You're welcome to put anything else into the body of that message and then just submit that. It will end up magically in my inbox. And then sometime during the next week or so, I will process these CEUs and send you the CEUs for this. Usually I do it on the weekend. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it's even faster. We just never know. It's a mystery of the universe. So send it out to me, and then we'll let the universe take it from there. And you'll get a response back, usually in less than a week. I try to get them out at least once a week, just so you know exactly what's there. It is not an automatic process. Well, some parts of it are automatic. I do a verification to make sure that you did answer something correctly, that you did follow the right process, which means you must have watched this video. And then I read through anything you might have put into that message beyond the scope of the CEU code word. And then I click a button, it automatically processes a new email and sends it back to you. So that is the super secret code word of the month, fog computing. That's what we were looking for. Make sure you're familiar with it. Go to professormesser.com, use that Contact Us link. That's what you should do to be able to get your email. So let's see what else we might have to look at. I've got others in here. We've got some time to go through another question that I have. So this would be one. This is certainly a good one. Maybe you remember this if you went through Network Plus, or maybe it's something you saw very first time when you went into the A+ side of things. This question asks, which of the following would best describe network traffic between devices in the same data center? Would that be VPN, extranet, VLAN, screened subnet, or east-west traffic? Which of the following would best describe network traffic between devices in the same data center? Would that be VPN, extranet, VLAN, screened subnet, or east-west traffic? It's got to be one of these, right? So lock in your answer by visiting professormesser.com/QA. Please do not put the answer in the chat room. Please do not put any hints in the chat room. So we'll have to see what this happens to be. See if you happen to know what it is. Oh, we had the course notes come up there real quick. What's in here? Let's see how you do. See this one. Maybe some of you are looking through this list and trying to figure out the details. This would be a good one where it might be good to throw out things you know can't possibly be the answer, because it is a multiple choice question. And if we can maximize our guessing, that's one way to go through that. It's a calculatus eliminatus to make that happen. We'll see how you do. A lot of you jumped right in. I sort of look at the number. You know, there's 320 people in our Socrative right now, and when I see the numbers jump up, it makes me think, yeah, there might be honed in on the answer here. We might have close to 100% of an answer. So we'll see if we do. when we do through this one. And the question, good question that came up, you'll notice a lot of these answers have 5 different selections. Normally on the exam, you get 4. The reason I commonly do 5, it's a little bit harder when there's an extra one to choose from. So most of the ones you see from me have 4 answers, unless it's in my practice exams book. The practice exams book is really written to emulate the same style as an actual exam. So you'll find most of the answers in that one have 4 answers because the actual exam commonly has 4 answers. There's some others that do more than one, of course. So you can step through that. Let's see how you did with this one. Since we had so many people that answered this one, it makes me think maybe we did really well. The question again, which of the following would best describe network traffic between devices in the same data center? Would that be VPN, extranet, VLAN, screen subnet, or east-west traffic? Let's see how we do. Let's show the results. Well, we didn't do 100%. We didn't even do 50%, but we did close to 50%. 47% say east-west traffic. 37% say VLAN. And then we have 6% that said screen subnet, 5% say extranet, 5% say VPN. This is effectively a 3-way tie for third place. So we're going to throw out the third place, and we'll look at the 2 that are here, east-west traffic and VLAN. For any of you that have configured VLANs before, you know it's a very good way to separate out what you're doing on the network. And the separation of those VLANs can be very, very useful if somebody is trying to make sure that you are making sure data on one part of the network does not interact with data on the other part of the network. But there's no requirement that the VLANs are all within a single data center. If you are talking about all information that stays in a data center, it doesn't go outside the data center, it's all within all of the devices in the data center, then you're talking about east-west traffic. East-west traffic is where, as I mentioned earlier, it's important from a security perspective to know, does the data move from this place to this place? Where's this data going? And how do I secure this data? So it's important to know if the data stays within those particular components. If it's within the same data center, we're really talking about east-west traffic. That's the way that we describe how this data is being transferred. So if you happen to have an image server that's communicating to a directory server, there's a web server talking to a file server, all of this data is within the same data center. It never leaves the data center. So make sure that you happen to know what this is. So I think this is an important part of securing data and where this data would come from. So make sure that you're familiar with the concept of east-west. Now, if data is leaving the data center, it's going somewhere else, then we're talking about north-south traffic. It's going outside of the data center. Maybe it's going to a different data center. Maybe it's going to a different data source. Maybe we're querying something externally. That is north-south traffic. That north-south idea and east-west idea is a good one. So there's our east-west traffic and the information that's going back and forth. If we're going in and out of the data center, it's north-south. If we're going within the data center itself, it's east-west. So I tried to put it in this image of the data center so that you could visualize it. If you put the internet at the top and your servers at the bottom, you should very easily be able to graph out in your mind where the x-axis is and where the y-axis is and figure out exactly what the different options are. Make sure you're familiar with what that happens to be. This is a description of where the data is going. It's not a description of the topology. It's a description of where data starts and where data ends and where that particular domain of data happens to be. If we were talking about a design of a network, then we might be talking about a LAN or a WAN. But in this case, we're talking about where does the data live? And in that case, we're talking about east-west or north-south. We use these terms all the time when we're talking to people, especially in a cloud environment where there's so many different places the data can go. So make sure you're familiar. When you're talking with other IT professionals, they may use those terms to be able to describe where that data is going. So if you answered E, east-west, that's what we were looking for. You can see that a number of you, 36% of you said VLAN. And although a virtual local area network is a great way to separate out the different parts of your network, it does not describe where the VLAN lives or where the data exists within the VLAN. So that's why, in this case, east-west is the only thing you would use. A screened subnet, those old school used to call that a DMZ. Screened subnet is a part of the network, a specific part where some information might live, but it doesn't describe where the data is flowing to and where the data is flowing from. Same thing with extranet, which commonly describes a network that is outside the scope of where yours is. In this case, we're talking about network traffic between devices in the same data center, so extranet wouldn't even qualify in this particular case unless the extranet was inside of your network. That's a little unusual. Probably wouldn't call it an extranet in that case. And lastly, a VPN, a virtual private network, which is a good way to securely communicate between different locations or different devices, does not describe how the data flows in the geography of the data. So we're really talking about geography and really understanding, is it within the same data center, within the same building? And if it is, it's east-west traffic. That's what we were looking for. That is the right answer, and 48% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, I know it's top of the hour, but let's do another one because I have it here. Why wouldn't we do this? I think this is a pretty good one, so we'll go as we step through this. Let's go through the list I have, and we'll choose this option, and it says, an administrator has received a report with a list of servers running an unsupported operating system version. Which of the following would best describe this report? Is it IPS log, DNS enumeration, vulnerability scan, OSINT analysis, or brute force attack? An administrator has received a report with a list of servers running an unsupported operating system version. Which of the following would best describe this report? Is it IPS log, DNS enumeration, vulnerability scan, OSINT analysis, and brute force attack? If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. You want to visit the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See what it happens to be. See what you think this report would come from. We'll have to figure out what it happens to be. Make sure you go through the list, see which one jumps out at you, see which one makes the most sense to you, and lock your answer in at professormesser.com/QA. Just follow the link on your screen to lock in the answer. There's a number of different topics in just this question that are brand new on the 601. So if you've sort of studied some of the older exams, you may find some of this stuff is definitely newer, not something you would commonly find. So see if you happen to know what it is. Lock in your answer. Let's see if you can break down what the answer to this one might be. Again, a lot of you locking it in quickly. So I'm watching those numbers as you're plugging in the answer. We can see interactively what the results are. And you guys really jumped into this one very, very, very quick to be able to make that one work. So let's see how you did. The question again asked, an administrator has received a report with a list of servers running an unsupported operating system version. Which of the following would best describe this report? Is it IPS log, DNS enumeration, vulnerability scan, OSINT analysis, or brute force attack? And let's see how you answered. Your results have us at 72% of you say vulnerability scan is what we were looking for. We have 14% that said OSINT analysis, 11% said IPS log. Those are basically right next to each other in the list. We have also single digits, 2% say DNS enumeration, and 1% say brute force attack. So if we go with the majority, we have 72% of you that said vulnerability scan. Well, if you were to look at the results of a vulnerability scan, you would be able to get an understanding or at least get a feel for what some of these might be. So if we were trying to understand more about what does a vulnerability scan see? How does it find this information on these devices? And what can it find? So you can find a place where somebody hasn't turned on the firewall. Maybe you'll find a vulnerability scan that gives you a known vulnerability with the things that people are using. This is very common to see what the answers are for this one. This happens to be Nessus. That is a vulnerability scan screenshot. This is one that's from Tenable. So that's the company is Tenable. They make this product called Nessus. Nessus is probably one of the most familiar vulnerability scanners for most people because they have a version that you can run without having to license what happens to be here. But look at the different things that a vulnerability scan might find. It might find a particular operating system that is out of date, or it has an out-of-date module. Maybe it's one that has DNS issues or SSH issues, and it's able to tell you that this is something you should upgrade because there are vulnerabilities that might be an issue that you might run into. So this is another really good example for people that are trying to understand the differences between a vulnerability scan and doing an actual exploit of those systems, or a penetration test. This gives you the information you would use to then put together a penetration test, because now you've identified places on the network, devices on the network, operating systems that may not be up to date or may not be patched. You may be able to take advantage of those, or perhaps even worse, have a third party take advantage of those. And so in this case, a vulnerability scan is indeed what we were looking at. That can tell us a list of servers running an unsupported operating system version. And that doesn't mean that the operating system is currently being attacked. It doesn't mean that anybody else even knows that the vulnerability happens to be there, but you know. That's why we run these scans, so that we're more informed about where these problems might be, so that we can resolve the issue now before someone else gains access to our systems. That is the key that we were looking for, and 73% of you did choose that vulnerability scan. Now, 14% of you said an OSINT analysis. OSINT is an open source intelligence, which means we go out to anything that's available on the internet and we start gathering information. You go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, you go to everywhere to find information about a particular company or a particular asset within the company. But here, we're getting a report with a list of servers running an unsupported operating system. That's not something you would find as being open source intelligence. That is something you can only find if you actually scan a device to be able to find that particular problem. So that's where, in this particular case, an OSINT analysis would not be the right answer. An IPS log would not show us this information either. An IPS log is looking for someone trying to attack a system using a set of known vulnerabilities. It's a known exploit. We can find it. We know they're going across this network, and we've identified attackers that are trying different things to gain access to a system. In fact, an IPS may or may not even be able to tell you if they were successful at the exploit they happen to be running, but it did identify that that exploit was sent across the network, which is really useful, but it doesn't help you, especially if you're somebody who's trying to get into the details of this. Doesn't help you understand which servers happen to be outdated. It only tells you if somebody happens to try to attack one of those servers. And even though you get a notice that someone tried to attack, doesn't even necessarily mean that device is indeed vulnerable to the attack that was tried. So it's a different perspective in being able to find that information. We also have 2% of you that said DNS enumeration. That means we go to a DNS server and we begin gathering information on a particular device. DNS will tell you about the names and IP addresses and sometimes some services that might be running on that device, but it doesn't tell you anything about an unsupported operating system version. So querying a DNS to gather information, not really going to help you either. And then lastly, we've got a brute force attack commonly associated with passwords. But brute force attacks really aren't going to help you understand what servers might be running an unsupported operating system version. In this case, the best answer here, the one that really the only answer that makes any sense, is indeed answer C, vulnerability scan, and 74% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. Well, hopefully that's a question that was one you were probably with all the way. You kind of got the details of that as we were going through it. But as you're probably aware, there are tons of questions, tons of topics, tons of things you need to know for the exam. The exam objectives are huge. And if you're somebody who's trying to find a good set of questions, it's sometimes difficult. If you need to test yourself before going into the exam, I've seen a number of really relatively popular practice exams on the internet that just have tons of outdated questions inside of them. I don't know why the people making those exams don't look at the exam objectives to be able to see what's in the objectives and what isn't, but it would really do you best if you were able to get a set of questions that asked information that was actually applicable to the exam. And I've got to tell you, that's the reason I wrote this book, is there was just not enough good questions out on the internet. It's a big book, 3 separate exams, 380 pages. This is my Security+Practice Exams book. It has in it all the topics, all the questions, and all the answers are specific to the 601 exam. You won't find any old data in here because I wrote every single question in here myself, and I made sure that every question was updated for the SY0-601, unlike other things that you might find out in other places. So let's go through a question that I have from this book, just to give you a feel for what this is like. I've got the PDF version of the book up right here. I thought we would step through a question. So this is from my practice exams book. This is question A17, and it asks, which of the following would be the best way to provide a website login using existing credentials from a third-party site? Would it be Federation, 802.1x, PEEP, or EAP Fast? Now, if you know the answer, this is a PDF file, so I could go to my annotation capabilities, and if I think it's B, I can mark B on here. I can draw on the screen. If you got a tablet and a pen, you can write on the screen. And you got 2 options here. We can go to page 33. This is page 8. You can go to page 33 for the quick answer, which will just tell you is it A, B, C, or D. But I like the details, which is on page 55. Now, instead of scrolling through to page 55, you can just click the details button, and it will take you directly to page 55. There it is, which gives me the question again at the top, and then tells me that the answer is A, Federation. And then, of course, importantly, tells you why that's the right answer. Gives you an idea of why we chose that one as the correct answer. Now, my problem, of course, is I take a practice exam and I get a question wrong, but the practice exams don't tend to tell me why I got the question wrong. So in my book, every single incorrect answer has a detailed set of descriptions on why these are the incorrect answers, so that you can understand why wasn't it 802.1x? Why wasn't it PEEP? And what is PEEP? Well, I wrote it down for you. So all of the acronyms are spelled out. All of the incorrect answers have a detailed explanation of why that was the incorrect answer, so that you can really understand the nuances behind every single possible answer. And I will tell you, if you read through this book, even if you got this question right, you knew it was Federation and you locked it in, don't skip over the answers, because your exam that you take at the exam center may be asking you about 802.1x. And if you didn't read through these answers, you may have missed how 802.1x might be applied in this particular situation. So I tell people, even read through the wrong answers, even if you got the question right. Now, if you're looking at this question, you're wondering, I have no idea what this question is even talking about, providing a website login from a third-party site. At the very bottom of the page, I have a QR code and a link that will take you to the video that describes the information that was in the question, so that after watching the video, you'll understand more about the question that was asked to begin with. Just another way to use that feedback loop that I've created within this book to ask a question, learn about the question, read the wrong answers, watch the video, and now you can start back with the question again. So that's the idea, is really being able to do this. I have both digital editions and physical editions on my site. Some folks are asking where the physical editions are. There's a tab on the price box at the very top between digital edition and physical edition. The physical edition, I know you'll find it after a while. It's hidden in there. There's a lot of stuff there. That's my practice exams book. That can, when you're done with this, since it's a PDF, I can hit the back button on my browser and it takes me back to where I started, and then I can go to the next question that's in my list. So that is my practice exams book. Maybe that's something that can help you for your exam. Go to professormesser.com/securitype, or just watch the videos. There's YouTube video play. Watch the YouTube video that is on my website to go one at a time from there as well. It's all on the website, plenty to find there, including a link over to the objectives. I've told you about 100 times already in this video on why it's so important to be able to get those objectives. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. Make sure you get your hands on those. They're very valuable. They tell you every single thing you need to know before walking into the exam. It's the first thing you should read through before you start your studies. It's the last thing you should use before going into the exam objectives or going into the exam, because you can use the objectives as a checklist. So useful to be able to make that happen. So make sure you are familiar with everything that's on those objectives. That might help you as well. For those of you in the chat room are saying there's some problems with lagging or connection issues, In this case, not on my side. It's on your side. Or it's on the YouTube side. But in this particular case, we're in good shape. And I have an excellent stream going off all the way there. YouTube at least telling me we're good. And my numbers here, thankfully, are really good. For those of you checking in, yep, see how the 3% solid all the way across? We're so good with our connection. So good. So that I'm not surprised, but in this case, not something on my side. It's actually on the YouTube side that's giving you an issue. It's between you and YouTube, not between me and YouTube. For a change, which is good. I like for a change. That's always good. We do one of these study groups every month. You can, of course, find out when the next one's going to be by looking at our calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar, and you can find out when the next one is for this particular month. If you go over to February the 22nd, that's when our next Security Plus study group is going to be. We will also have A Plus study groups on the 7th, on the 9th, and we do a Network Plus study group on the 15th. Plenty to go through there as well. See how familiar you are with that calendar. And if you're watching this video and we're well after that date, you can go to professormesser.com/calendar and find out when the next event's going to be. There's also an events channel in my Discord. So if you are in Discord, you can do that as well. You can find exactly where that happens to be. Well, we're through our first hour of the study group. Can you believe it? That went fast. But we're not done yet. We have our after show where instead of me asking you questions, you're going to ask me questions. And most of the time I answer those questions. So we'll find out in the after show. Stick around for that. Don't forget that we have our weekly Security Plus pop quiz question that we post on email. You can find the link to that on our homepage. We also have links on Twitter and Instagram if you happen to be on those, so you can see the questions that we ask. And of course, don't forget about our entire YouTube catalog. What? You haven't subscribed to YouTube yet? You should do that. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube, subscribe to that. And if you would like to click the bell, you'll be informed whenever we go live. Another great place to get more information. Don't forget about the vouchers. You could, of course, pay full price for the vouchers, but that's certainly one way to do it. But I would absolutely recommend that if you are someone who's trying to find information that's important, you may want to go out to find those vouchers and save some money instead of spending full price for your vouchers. And don't forget about our course notes and practice exams on our website. Keeps everything going. Keeps the whole system working the way it should be. It's another great way to support what we do. But that is a great place to stop our very first part of the first half of this study group. Stick around for the after show. Thanks for being here, and we will see you again on the Security Plus study group. Okay. Let's see. I do have... Let's flip some things around here. There we go. So it's time for the after show. We've got a lot of folks in the chat room, which I'm sure will give you a lot of great questions from the chat room. The way that you can participate is if you're on my website watching at professormesser.com/live, you can see that there is an embedded chat on that page. If you're on YouTube, you can see that there's a YouTube chat on the YouTube page. It's the same chat. So all you have to do is put your question into the chat, and we can start breaking this down and having a look at other pieces of this and get an understanding of what different options might be. And we can kind of start with one from HO who says, Professor, I need help. Are there any labs to practice to take the SY0-601 Security Plus exam? I don't see labs anywhere. Help. I personally did not create any labs, but I love the ones that CompTIA has. I've worked through their labs before. Their new set of labs is remarkable. And it's so well integrated, probably some of the best labs you're going to find in the industry. And I think I've used all of them at this point. On my website, let's take you over there. Put me here. So on the website, under the Security Plus study recommendations, well, first we'll get a lovely ad on our screen. But after the ad goes by, it'll bring you up to the different options available for study resources. Of course, my videos are there because I think those are a good study resource, but I'm biased. There are books. If you're someone who's in the market to get some ebooks, there are some on my website. I also have a study pack. So if you want to get an all-in-one that has a book and videos and tests and everything except for labs, it's the ultimate study pack. The labs are available separately in the Security Plus interactive pack. And that interactive pack, I have a video. If you click that, it will take you to another page. You can watch the video on, actually, it's on this page. You can watch the video on that where I step through the practice exams there. In fact, let me get rid of, well, I'll just leave me on the screen. Why not? And I'll skip ahead so you can kind of see that this is a VM environment where you can do whatever you'd like. You follow the instructions on the right side and it takes you through performing some of these processes here. So it's just another example of what you might have available from a practice exam perspective. That's on my website under the Security Plus recommended products. It's something you might want to consider. And by the way, whenever you start stepping through these, the prices are less than what you would pay on the CompTIA website, and I bundle some of my study materials along with it. So it's almost a win-win. It's a twofer if you start looking at those. A great place to go to learn more about what different options might be available for you and might save you a little bit of money as well. Other questions. This question, what's the largest data center you've been in? I've been in some really, really large data centers. Some that are notable, probably not the largest that I've been in. I've been in some very large data centers that have organizations that do IT consulting, some of the biggest in the world. I've been in some of the biggest bank data centers in the world. What you find, though, is that once you get to a certain point, you don't want your data center to be so large that that everything is there. So generally you have multiple data centers once you get that big. But some of the most notable environments, computing environments that I've been in, I don't know if I can necessarily call it a data center, but in our travels, some of them that I've seen, a brewery, probably the largest brewer in the United States. I've been to one of their facilities and worked with them with their technology, but then also got to see the assembly line close up when they're making the beer. That was kind of fun. And another one that was interesting, it was at a nuclear power plant. Won't say where this was, but I had to get into the plant to be able to install some monitoring systems. And what I didn't realize is when you go through the metal detector when you're going in, it was pretty nonchalant. Obviously, there are armed guards there when you're going through the metal detector, but that's pretty much like you would have at an airport. And then you walk through the door into the other room past the metal detector, and there is a member of the U.S. military there with an M4. So he's ready to go. He's got his rifle just there looking through a one-way mirror, a one-way piece of glass where he can see you, but I can't see him, and he's watching everybody. And they're not coming through that door unless they're allowed through that door. So that was interesting. That's something you don't see every time you walk into a facility. Those are probably the most remarkable computing environments that I've ever been in. That was pretty interesting. Question about the Security Plus exam. Eric asks, are there any prerequisites to take the Security Plus? Do I need to have Network Plus first? Can I go straight to the Security Plus cert? There are no formal prerequisites for the Security Plus exam. There's obviously, and if you read through the exam objectives, there's an expectation that you already have a certain amount of knowledge with doing certain tasks, and those are detailed in the exam objectives. But I will also tell you that a number of people that come to my site who start their learning process with Security Plus, in many cases have no IT experience at all. So they're starting from ground zero and they're working their way back up. So that could be you. That might happen with the things you're doing. So I would, of course, let you know, and I would tell you that you can absolutely jump into Security Plus without prerequisites. There are some advantages, I think, to starting with A+, and then going to Network Plus, and then going to Security Plus, because some of these topics tend to build on each other when we get into it. But you're really only talking about maybe 10% of the Security Plus exam as being something you would build on. Well, you could probably pick up the 10% as you go along. So not a requirement, not something you have to worry about, just a normal part of what we do. So that's what I would recommend too. If you're somebody who's trying to work the Security Plus exam, you don't want to have to go back and do anything else. You don't have to. Just start with Security Plus and you'll be great. Let's see what other options we might have. We're going to keep scrolling down. Dumb Tech, not a great name, but we're going to go with that. You're not dumb. Did I hear you say discounted voucher? You did. All the vouchers on my site are discounted. Is the voucher that has the combo with the retake voucher also available discounted? Interestingly enough, a single voucher with a discount is or the retake option is only available directly from CompTIA, and it is not discounted. So they don't offer that to the partners. So I don't have the option to give you a single voucher that can be used. If you fail, you can use that same voucher to take the exam again. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to offer you along those lines. In reality, it's probably best that you just study really hard and pass it the first time, and then you don't have to pay extra for a retake. That's my strategy anyway, and that's the one I would recommend to you, is don't rely on the retake. You should instead be passing it the first time. And I would think, if you did the math, it probably costs less to buy individual vouchers than it would be to buy one with a retake every single time you go through these. So that's what I would recommend for the things that you are doing. Other questions that you have here. I don't want to scroll too quickly through these. Let's keep going down the list. Other ones on this list, we're going to keep scrolling. This is a common question, but you get through Security Plus, and then what? What do you do next? You can do anything you'd like, but the real question is not what is after Security Plus. The real question is, what are you doing? What's the focus? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish by even taking the Security Plus to begin with? I think a number of people go into this exam, just somebody told them, you should really have a Security Plus. Why don't you get that? Oh, okay. But they don't even think about, why am I doing this? Why am I taking this exam? What is the end game? Because the certification is not the end. The certification is the means to an end, but you have to come up with why you're taking it to begin with. The Security Plus is used. Are you getting a job? Are you getting a better job? Are you interested in a particular job? Have you looked at the job description for every employer in your area to see what they're asking for? Are they asking for A+? Are they asking for Network Plus? Are they asking for Security Plus? Are they asking for a Microsoft Cloud certification? Are they asking for a Cisco networking certification? What are they asking for? And that's really what should be driving you a particular direction. Isn't what I or really anyone tells you should be next on your list. It's what are you trying to accomplish, and then use these certifications to get there. So you can see the goal. It's way down there. You now need to create all of the pathways, all of the steps that will get you from where you are now to the goal that you're trying to get to. I can't answer that question for you. Only you can answer that question. I can give you some ideas. I can tell you things to talk about. I can talk to you about what your goals are and give you a perspective of how you might get there. But the IT jobs that are out there and your IT career is not on a rail, as we tend to say in the gaming community, where you must go from point A to point B and you must follow this path. You'll never see that in IT. In IT, there are so many different ways to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. And it's really up to what interests you, what employers are looking for, and what opportunities might be in your area. So I don't know what's after Security Plus. What do you want to do? And you should be able to figure out the answer then to what's next once you figure out where you're going and where you're looking at that. Other questions on the study group? I'm flipping through here very, very quickly. I apologize if I'm kind of missing on this list of where this goes. So the question, this is more of a, okay, we'll do the question. It says DNS stands for domain name system. I could have sworn it meant domain name server. It does not. It means domain name system. So a DNS server is actually correct. An ATM machine is not. So that's one of those that you might run into. But DNS has always been a domain name system. So a DNS server is a domain name system server. It's pretty much always been that way. Maybe, I don't believe I'm wrong. I don't think that's it, but you might want to look at the RFCs. This is a really good example, by the way, that if you're ever wondering, do I have the right information? Is it being explained the right way? Are these names really what they should be? Just go to the RFC. The request for comment is the way on the internet with these open standards that we're able to document and reference what these standards actually are. And if you're, don't take my word for it, don't take anybody else's word for it, just go to the standard. And then you don't have to worry about what I think the answer is. I might get it wrong. Somebody else might get it wrong. But the only way we know what's right is we go to the standards. That's the best way to do it. Same reason I tell people when they're trying to figure out what categories of cable are supported for certain Ethernet standards, you need to go to the Ethernet standard. If you're trying to determine what colors are associated with a certain type of punch down, you need to go to the EIA standards, the 568 standards. So that's the reason we have these standards, so that there's no question. We know exactly what the right answer is because the standard tells us what the right answer happens to be. Other questions from the chat. Let's keep going. This is a pretty timely question. We'll discuss this for a moment. This is from Ali. He says, "Hi, Professor Messer. Any insight on the recent layoffs and the future of IT? Thanks." This is just the normal cycle of what happens in the economy affects every other job in the world. And you will see the ups and the downs happen all the time. If this is your first run through a series of cyclical, economy-driven layoffs, I can tell you, examine them, take a look at what's going on, get an understanding of who's not working anymore and who's still got a job. But I'll let you know that it's going to go back up and we're going to start hiring like crazy again. And then it's going to come down again. What happens today is going to happen again in the future. So I've been through recessions and layoffs and reductions in force, or RIFs, as you might hear them called. This happens all the time in the industry. And it's really mostly driven by projects and by the economy. So right now, the economy, not fantastic. We're hanging on. We're hoping for the best. We're doing what we can. But other companies have seen revenue is not coming in the way it used to be. Therefore, we can't pay the people what we used to pay. We're going to need, and unfortunately, the employees in an organization are very often, if almost always, the most expensive amount of money that a company is spending every month. So that's a very good place to start cutting some of the fat away to survive the slowdown until things pick up again. That's why I always tell people you should always be ready for anything. You should always be ready for moving to a different job. You should be ready in case your job suddenly doesn't happen, it's not there tomorrow. These types of things happen. Sometimes it's economy, sometimes it's the company. I've been through acquisitions. Once the acquisition is made, they just fired a bunch of people, and they fired people that were very good at what they did. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about the quality of their work. It just happened to be that it was a numbers game. And it's kind of a mental slap in the face, because we're told when we work for these big companies that we're part of a family and that we're all working together towards a common goal. Oh, we mean you're fired. That's what we meant. Sorry, did we say family? We meant we can't have you in our family anymore. So they throw you out of the family. That's sort of the corporate speak of why we want you to work here and we want you to be happy sometimes brings people into thinking or talking about these positions in an organization as familial. But the reality is it's a company. They have it's an organization. They have a goal. Usually that goal in a commercial organization is to make money. Okay, so when we start getting through all of these different questions and working through what other people happen to be doing with these questions, it is really a challenge to keep track of this, because sometimes companies hire and not hire based on a lot of different things. But I think if somebody's working on layoffs, working on dealing with problems in the organization, or sometimes jobs just disappear, we just have to be ready for it. Be ready is my recommendation here when you're talking about layoffs and problems in IT. So absolutely work your way through those as well. I think that's pretty important. Other questions like this one, how important is it to know acronyms? There are like 300 acronyms in the objectives. That's the only way we talk is through acronyms. So you're going to find acronyms being something you need to know. But I would say the reality for the exam is don't spend time just doing flashcards of acronym and the name, acronym and the name. That doesn't help anybody. And you're never going to get a question on your exam that says, OSINT, what do the characters in OSINT mean? It's never going to ask you that. It's going to be more about like the question I asked earlier, where I was asking you about a certain scenario. Would that be OSINT or not OSINT? That's more about how we use it. It's just using the term. Now, sometimes knowing the words in that term can help you. Sometimes they can't. So it's important to know the acronyms because you'll be referenced with them. But I'll also tell you that if you go through these and you start working with them, I think, where's the one with the objectives? So I think as we start working with these and going through them, I think you'll start to find that the acronyms come naturally, that you never have to go back to the acronyms page because you've already learned all these acronyms through the process of learning all the exam objectives. And that's what I would recommend you do is just go through the exam objectives. You're going to learn all of the acronyms you need to know as going through the exam objectives. You don't have to do flashcards. You don't have to do memorization. In fact, in the world of IT, we rarely give you the name anyway. We just say OSINT. And we expect everyone in the room to know what we just talked about. If somebody says, what, OSINT, I don't know what that means. Like, oh, okay, you're the one who just started your studies. Because everybody else here, we just use the term. We don't even say what it is anymore. We just use the term normally in being able to work through it. So don't worry about every acronym that's in the back of the exam objectives. You're going to learn them anyway, and it's not even going to be an issue. Kind of works here. Let's other questions that come through. I'm going to keep going through this list. This is a good question. Diana asks, has anyone taken Security Plus at home? I think a number of people have. It has 135 minutes, not 90 minutes. Does that mean there are more questions or more time? No and no. Doesn't mean either of those. At the very beginning of your exam, there's a check-in process, and there is a section of the exam called the candidate agreement. The candidate agreement is a non-disclosure agreement between you and CompTIA that basically says you're not going to cheat on this exam and you're not going to tell anybody what's in this exam. It's effectively, I just took the entire agreement and collapsed it into one sentence. Those things are important, but you have to read through them and agree to them before the 90-minute exam timer starts. So that 135 minutes they give you is telling you there's a little bit of check-in process at the beginning, and we give you 10 to 15 minutes to read through the candidate agreement and digitally sign it at the bottom, click that you agree, and continue with it. So that's why 135 minutes is listed there. When you start the clock on your exam, you say, I'm ready, go. It's 90 minutes, and you could get a maximum of 90 questions. That's it. You don't get more than 90 minutes, you get 90. Even though it says 135, you get 90. So that's a pretty important question, and thank you for that, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're expecting 135 minutes and the clock starts and you get 90 and suddenly your strategy has changed. That's not the point where you want your strategy to be off the mark and being able to work through that. Other folks, let's see. This one is pretty good. Goldie says, I've been having trouble staying consistent lately with my SY0-601 studies. Do people usually hop on the Discord chat for group studies? All the time. I think there's been one every night in the study group. Why are we looking at my, oh, I know what we're looking at. We were looking at, there's the question, except there's everything else going by. The people that are on my Discord are constantly going into these chats. There's tons of people, usually at night during U.S. time, during the evening hours. There's usually people in a voice chat, and they're going through a number of the topics on the exam. It's a great place to go. We have a great community on our Discord, and tons of knowledgeable people, people just studying between each other. Just a very collaborative process with people that want you to succeed. And I would say overall, regardless of what Hollywood tells you IT is like, regardless of what other people outside the industry tell you what IT is like, information technology is the people that I've worked with and the people that I've interacted with in IT throughout my career have been fantastic people to work with. They want you to succeed. They will help you succeed. We're all in this together, as they say, as the song goes. So I want you to interact with these same people. We're all like-minded. We all want you to succeed. And our Discord just tends to be a good place for everybody to hang out and be able to do that. I'd recommend it as well. So this is a pretty good one. Hey, Professor, how lovely says, are performance-based questions actually a part of the exam? Oh, yes. Yes, they are. The first handful of questions you get on your exam could be about 5 questions, could be less, could be more, are performance-based questions. Those are on the exam. They could be drag and drop. They can be not multiple choice, but anything but multiple choice. Fill in the blank, putting things in a particular order, being able to match things on the screen. Yeah, they're absolutely part of the exam, and you will get them. Don't be thrown when you start the exam. There's people that walk into the exams and have no idea that performance-based questions are on the exam. And because they are the first set of questions you get, by the time they get to the third one, they're starting to sweat bullets thinking there's 90 of these on the exam. They don't even realize that it actually gets easier with the multiple choice based question. So you'll get through 3 or 4 or 5 of these or more, and then suddenly it goes to multiple choice for the rest of the exam. So don't worry when you start seeing those completely normal. There's only a group of them. In fact, some people skip over the performance-based questions. They go straight to multiple choice, go through the multiple choice, and then they come back and do the performance-based last. It's really up to you. You pick the strategy that works best for you. That's just one that I've had great success with through the years. And as a follow-up to that is, well, how much attention should I pay to performance-based questions? You should pay as much attention to those as any other question on the exam. We don't know how each question is graded. We don't know if performance-based questions are worth more than multiple choice or less than multiple choice. And regardless of what you might suppose, it doesn't matter because you don't know and you'll never know. And CompTIA will never tell you. So although you might think it's worth more, we have had some reports from people, this is third-party reports, so take it with what it's worth, that have told us, I took my exam, I went through the entire exam, I skipped the performance-based questions, I got all the way through the multiple choice, and before I was able to come back to the performance-based, I ran out of time, my exam ended, and I still passed. So there are reports of people that say, I didn't answer any of the performance-based questions, and I passed my exam. So there are people that have told me, well, if you don't pass, if you don't get the performance-based questions right, you failed. Well, that's patently false. That's certainly not true based on what we've seen. And I think from the perspective of an organization that's trying to give you opportunities to answer in different ways, the performance-based questions are actually quite good. If you know the exam objectives, you'll do fine on them. Don't worry about the way they ask the question. Worry about you knowing the content that's in the exam objectives. And if you know the exam objectives, it doesn't matter how they ask the question. Is it matching? Whatever. Is it fill in the blank? Whatever. I know the material. So ask the question however you would like. I will be able to answer it because I know the exam objectives. That's my strategy for you. Other questions. Let's keep going in this list. Go. So folks in the chat room were asking about the Discord. Go to professorinvestor.com/Discord. That's how you get there. Other questions. Folks are planning to take their questions. This is an important thing on the exam. We just talked about performance-based questions. Mark has a good point. He first saw the 501 exam, and the performance-based questions took him the longest. That's probably not unusual. One single performance-based question will probably take more time than one single multiple-choice-based question. But you have to be very careful with time management on the exam. So because they take so much time, is it more important to skip them? Should you maybe run through all of them as quickly as you can to understand the topics on the exam, which of the performance-based questions? That's probably a good idea. Let's go, okay, this one's about VLANs. Click. This one's about encryption. This one's about VPNs. Let's skip them and let's go to the multiple choice. And as you go through the multiple choice, they might give you topics and options in the multiple choice that remind you of things that will help you on the performance-based questions. That's why I said usually you should just skip them and come back to them. And they do take a while, so watch the clock. There's always a clock on the screen. It will tell you everything you need to know with how long this is really going to take. Make sure. Really, really important. Other questions. For example, some people said, could we have an example of a performance-based question? When this is over, you can rewind all the way to the beginning. The very first new question on our study groups is always a performance-based question. So you have 12 months of those you can go back and check with for the SY0-601. We tend to use similar questions every 12 months, but they are different. The question is slightly different. The answers are very different. So it's a similar style of question every 12 months. It's hard to come up with 12 different performance-based questions. And I am updating them from time to time. So you do see the answer there. But the point is you always get a new question every time, regardless of how far back you go. This one is more of an exam question. How is the exam laid out? The last physician says, it sounds like you can jump around the questions. Is that correct? Sometimes a later question will remind you of a previous answer, like I just mentioned. You were way ahead of me. Yes, you can jump around once the exam starts. Let's say the exam is 90 questions that you get. You got the max. You will be handed 90 questions that you could jump to any question at any time. If you wanted to jump all the way to question 90 and work your way backwards through the exam, you could do that. We refer to this as a linear exam. You don't have to go through it in a linear way, but the exam and all of the questions have already been predefined before the exam even started for you. This is a little different than exams like the ones used for the Cisco, many of the Cisco exams, for example, where the answer that you make to a question determines what the next question is going to be. And once you submit the answer to a question, you can't go back. So a little bit different in those scenarios. Fortunately, the CompTIA questions are linear and you can go back and forth and skip around and go back to a question over and over and over again if you want to. It's completely up to you and what you want to do. So absolutely the option is there. There's always an index link that you can jump to and go right to a question that you're looking for. It's on the exam options at the very top of the screen. Let's see how we do in the next questions that we get. I'm going to go to some of the others. Other questions in here. This question asked, do you think that IT is getting very saturated? I think it's pretty much the same colors it's always been, hasn't it? There's not really much of a difference there. Looks the same to me. I think you're referring to the number of people working in IT. There's a lot of jobs available in IT right now, so I would say nope, not a problem with getting available jobs. The jobs are out there. You just have to get in the door and then start really focusing on a particular set of technologies. Once you get in, that's the hardest part. Now it's time to focus. Find the niche that's interesting for you. Learn everything you can about that niche. And now you're just on your way with IT. That is the secret, if there is one. Not really a secret, but it's a good strategy to get in IT and then to get jobs and move up through jobs very, very quickly, increase the amount of pay, increase your coverage in technologies, increase your knowledge of these technologies. That's exactly the way to do it right there. Get in, find the niche, learn everything you can about that niche, and then add on more niches. Just keep going. You never stop in IT. Now, some people think, well, I got my first IT job. I'm done studying. Nope. You've just started studying is what happens. You will never stop. New technologies come around all the time, and you have to stay up to date. And then you have to know all the old stuff too. So absolutely be familiar with that. How many practice sets are in my course bundle? I'm so glad you asked, which gives me an opportunity to pull up my book. There it is. The SY0-601 Security+Practice Exams. There are 3 complete practice exams in this book, including multiple choice and performance-based questions, 3 90-question exams. Each exam has 5 performance-based questions and 85 multiple choice-based questions. And I have 3 of those in this book. So 3 full exams written to have the same feel, the same style as an actual Security+ exam. Someone asked me the other day, oh, are these the same questions you get on the exam? Come on now. No, you're not. I'm not going to give you the questions to the exam. If I was to give you the questions to the exam, it's what we would call cheating. It's what we would call limiting your ability to learn, and ultimately limiting your career. So don't cheat. Instead, use a set of questions that has been specifically written for the exam, that are unique questions that you'll never find anywhere else, written by somebody who has actually some knowledge in what the exam looks like. That's what that is. This is more of a business question. Do you plan to offer membership to your YouTube channel? Never. I never plan to offer membership to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel has always been free and available. If you want to watch one video or an entire course of videos or multiple courses of videos, you go to my YouTube channel. You don't need to register. There's nothing held back. There's no videos behind a paywall. There's no videos hidden somewhere else. They're all on YouTube. And the primary goal we have is to really make a higher level of training that you just couldn't get anywhere else, but to make it absolutely free. And that will continue to be our watchword as we go through this. There's never going to be a time when I would want to somehow prevent you from gaining access to the videos. That just doesn't make sense. No, there's no plans to do any of that. Similarly, is it good practice to watch your videos while on the treadmill? Sure. Or on the train or on a plane. I can watch them with lunch. I can go with the brunch. I can find them in a cave. The idea is watch the videos wherever you can. There's plenty of them, and you're going to be watching for a long time. So don't maybe stay on the treadmill for 20 hours. Maybe do other things too. So, but why not take them with you to the gym? I listen to a lot of podcasts at the gym. I listen to a lot of technical information at the gym. So while I'm picking up heavy things and putting them back down again, I'm also learning about the latest things going on with encrypted DNS servers and exploits of the week and understanding the new technologies coming out. It's the way that I stay up to date with what's going on. So absolutely, being able to work through wherever you happen to be, do what you can to get your eyeballs and your ears listening and looking into the things you need to know for the exam. Other questions. Here's a pretty good one because it really needs more qualification. But AC3 asks, hi, Professor. I'm currently pursuing my degree in cybersecurity. Should I also pursue certifications as well? Well, I guess it depends on what you want to do, but I would refer you to a video that is in the YouTube video description of this video. It's already there, and it says how to get a job in IT with no experience. And in that video, I describe all of the different elements that can best prepare you when you're ready to apply for that job. And the first two elements are a formal education, like a cybersecurity degree, assuming that this really applies to IT and not something else. And then the second one is some type of industry certification. So both of those work together. One does not replace the other. A formal degree does not replace a certification. A certification does not replace a formal degree. These are different credentials that provide you with a different set of things to provide to in a prospective employer. So don't think that you can do one or the other. You should absolutely be looking at certifications, even if you're getting a formal degree, because there's going to be other people that apply to this job that have a formal degree, a cybersecurity degree, an IT degree, a business degree. They got a 4-year degree, just like you'll have a 4-year degree. Well, now how do you differentiate yourself? Yeah, I have Security+. They don't. That's how you do it. And it's not just any one thing. It's a group of things, but that's one of the things in your group that will help make you a little bit stronger in this group of prospective employees than you might not normally have. So you need to do both. Make sure you have both. That's the goal. So some folks were talking about the user interface for the exam. And some people were talking about Pearson VUE. Some people were talking about CompTIA. So the question is, wait, King says, so does that mean Pearson VUE has a different graphical user interface compared to CompTIA's test? Let's break this out a little bit so you understand the relationships between these different companies. CompTIA is the company that has a focus on technology and how organizations are using technology. And there's a huge arm of CompTIA that does industry certifications. This is the one that we are most familiar with, is the certification side of CompTIA. The CompTIA, though, does not have testing centers. They don't proctor the exam. They're not in charge of managing and watching people as they are taking the exam. They don't want to be in that business. There are other companies that do that for a living. And one of those companies that sets up these types of exams for companies to provide is a company called Pearson VUE. Pearson, of course, is a big company. It's a very big conglomerate with a lot of other different companies within it. One of those different companies of Pearson is Pearson VUE, V-U-E. Pearson VUE is a company that does a lot of different things, but one of the things they do is provide testing centers and testing services online for people that would like to use them as the testing. That way, CompTIA can write the content, Pearson VUE can give the exam. So when you go to take an exam for CompTIA, you're visiting either a Pearson VUE certified testing center or you're taking the exam online directly from Pearson VUE. That's the way it works today. So it's whenever you take it, there's no difference between a CompTIA test and there's really no such thing as a Pearson VUE test. It's the CompTIA test that is provided to you through the services of Pearson VUE. So hopefully that gives you some perspective as to the relationship between those two companies. Other questions? Let's keep this moving. Getting close to the top of the hour, so I want to be sure to get through as many as possible. This goes back a ways. What was my first certification from CompTIA? Was the Security+. Interestingly enough, since this is the Security+ study group, I started by getting the Security+ exam. That's because I was working as a systems engineer for a large multi-billion-dollar cybersecurity company. And we had firewalls, antivirus, IPS, just tons of technologies at the time. It was kind of an emerging market for a number of those different types of technologies. And one of the things that if you've ever worked for one of these large organizations before, they always tell you at the beginning of the year, what are your goals for the year? What are your personal goals? And you have to come up with something. Because at the end of the year, they look at this list and say, did you accomplish these personal goals? And if you did, then we might give you an increase in pay. Maybe not, but maybe we will. And so one of the things I put down is, well, we just, as a company, we started buying all these security products. Why don't I go get a security certification? And I put that down as my goal for the year. So the first thing I went out and got was Security+. That was sort of my first foray into CompTIA. And I realized, wow, they've got networking certification. They got A+. I'm going to go take those too. So I ended up doing Security+ first, then Network+, then A+. So I did it backwards. I did it, as some of you that have already gone through this list, starting at A+, Network+, and Security+ is what they recommend. But I am living proof of bucking the system and doing it backwards. Because I was working for a security company, Security+ made sense. The things that I was doing in that security company came from my days of working with protocol analysis tools. And so Network+ was a good second step, sort of adding on to that annual requirement. And then lastly, I figure, well, I got the other two. Why don't I go get A+ too? Because I think I might do something like create a course for A+. Why don't I go take the exam? And that's sort of what started this whole thing. So in a way, it was the corporate annual review culture of weirdness that we always tend to go through every year that really got me thinking, maybe we should do something like this for the rest of the world. There were other things layered onto that, but it was certainly played a role in some of the things that we do here. It sort of started us on the path of really looking very intently at how can we make this information to others and how can we make it available? How can we make it accessible regardless of where you are and who you are? And at the time, that was not an easy thing. YouTube did not exist when we started doing this. So we sort of worked our way and built it as the industry was building it out. People weren't looking at online as being a significant training opportunity. So we were a little ahead of the game, and it all worked out. It's a constant battle, but we do it. Along those same lines, Mark asks, well, do you teach outside of YouTube? With what time, Mark? What are you talking about, dude? I'm busy enough doing this. We're good. I have a background in corporate communication and corporate training, in doing training through the years in person. But right now, my focus, the only way I can really have literally hundreds of thousands of subscribers and millions of views is if I make content and put it on YouTube. So this has been a great way to really put that information out for other people to be able to use without doing something outside of YouTube. I think that would be a waste of time at this point to go outside of YouTube. It doesn't make any sense, or whatever, so outside of a video training opportunity. I don't know, will YouTube still be here in the future? I hope they are. But regardless of what that thing is, and online training really provides so many great advantages. So we're just going to keep doing this. Why stop doing live streams? You know, this is a great way to communicate and get information out to other people. So that's what I would highly recommend. This is really a question answered in the very first video of my Security Plus training course. So I always recommend to people, if you've never looked at anything in my course, just watch the first video. This question asks, can I pass Security Plus exam by watching all of your free Security Plus videos alone? I'm guessing you mean not using other training materials and not just sitting in a room by yourself. Although either way works. The video course is created, we designed the course so that it would cover every single topic from the exam objectives. But as I mentioned in the very first video of my course, you should use as many training materials as you need. If you need a book, go get a good book. Go get some videos. Go get some labs. Go get some Q&A. So not everybody needs a practice exams book. I don't know who that would be. I think everybody needs a practice exam book. But maybe you don't. Maybe you're fine after reading through it because you've already been in the industry. You've already been doing this a number of years. You've got some foundational knowledge that you can apply to this. So maybe you don't need a lot of training materials. Or maybe you're starting from ground zero and you need as much as you can get your hands on. So don't limit yourself and don't think that there's any shortcuts, because there absolutely are no shortcuts on any of these certification exams. You should get as many as you possibly can. Other questions that we have. Oh, speaking of taking your exam materials with you when you're working out, Blake says, I got most of my certs on the treadmill. That's where it happens. That's a great way to do it. If you're walking, if you are on the treadmill, if you're just in the gym, if you are walking in your neighborhood, wherever you are, that's a great way. Just put it in your ear and you're good. That's the great way to do it. Other questions. We're going to keep going, scroll, kind of hitting them as I go. So I appreciate your, I know it must be annoying listening as I hum my way through the chat room, which one's next. But I absolutely am trying to get through ones that people have up. This one is from Philip, who says, did you ever consider making other CompTIA/Cisco cert videos like CySA+, CCNA? Well, sure. There is in my mind another training course in here. What that training course will be has not been determined yet. So I often tell you that I only know what it's going to be once it finally starts. And I have not started it yet. Right now, we're in the middle of a different project. But once that project is done, then I'll have to think, what should the next course be? So my idea is I'd love to do another course. I'm not committing to that yet, but I have a big list. So if I have that list that if I was going to do another course, what would it be and what ranking would I give these things? And I'm constantly changing the ranking. It's constantly going up and down. So could it be Cisco? Yes. Could it be CySA? Sure. Could it be Linux related? Yeah. Could it be cloud-based? Yeah, cloud sounds good. So I got lots of things I'd love to do. I have more than I can ever as a human being ever complete. I just don't know what it is right now. And I don't have anything I can announce for anyone right now either. So a great question, but I don't have any answer for you. It's one of those where we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, it's killing me. I can't wait. I need immediate knowledge. So that's why. We never know until we know. That's how it works. So what other questions? I mentioned that I took my certifications out of order, which really, there's not an order. Look at me. I've got how long I've been sitting up here with my own head sitting in the corner. There we go. So I apologize to everybody who's been twitchy over that. The certs out of order thing is not out of order if it meets the strategy that you have in mind for getting your next job and getting a better job. So there is a recommendation of how many people step through these certs, but you don't have to follow any recommendations. You're your own person and you have your own strategy on what you need to do. You should do the research to determine which one comes first for you, not which cert comes first based on what somebody else says, which is in the world of internet, let me tell you what you need to do message boards. Those just drive me crazy, where people will say, what should I do first? And they will say, well, you need to do this first. You didn't even ask them what they wanted to do. You didn't ask them what their goals were. You didn't ask them what their objectives were. You don't know where they live. All of these things come into play. There's so many different variables. So no one person can tell you what the best option might be until they really sit down and go through the details with you. Only then can somebody give you a knowledgeable answer on what the right thing might be for your next steps. Other questions, still scrolling. A lot of football questions in here for some reason. Some people are mentioning teams. I have no idea what's going on in the world of football. So you've come to the wrong place. I do not know. I think it's about time for a Super Bowl. That makes sense if people are talking about it, but I don't pay any attention. Sorry. I suck all the wind, all the air just goes right out of the room when people want to talk to me about football. As I mentioned in my last study group, I just give the normal stuff. Well, it's going to be an offensive battle. They really the turnovers will kill them. So it's going to be the ground game's very important. If we have to start passing, they got to be on mark. Interceptions will kill you. Yeah, you'll just say the same thing every time. And I think I've just described the Super Bowl pretty well. I think I have no idea who's in it, so that applies. That makes perfect sense. The keys to the game. That's my keys. If anybody wonders, I'll just give you a bunch of normal stuff they say on TV, and that'll be the right answer. Other questions. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep scrolling. People are mentioning, if you've got, I do take requests from people say, what should I do next? What should the next exam be? What should the next course be? I do take requests. I take them to determine what interest is, but I don't guarantee that any of these will be the next one. So that's it. Here's a pretty good one because this one sort of came up in a series of things I was reading on the Reddit. And this is the question that needs to be qualified. This is another one that people ask and there's never a follow-up. They just give an answer. But I think this is nuanced and it's important, especially in the world of IT. And I'll tell you how it applies. So the question again is, what programming languages do you know and what is your proficiency in them? First, let's define what a programming language is, because I think programming means I'm building an app. And whenever I say programming, that's what I mean by it, just so we're clear on what definitions we can apply to these things. So when I say programming language, I mean I'm working with creating an app for a mobile device. So I'm working in the environment that's required to do that, whether it's on Android or iOS. They're different environments you would use to be able to build those particular applications. Maybe I'm building something in C++. Maybe I'm building an app for a website. So you open up a browser and there's a whole application you go through. That's an application. That's a programming language. In the world of IT, we don't do programming. We don't. There's very often an entire different group of folks in an organization that are programmers. They are application developers, or they are developers, just the single word. But they build apps. They manage the apps. They upgrade the apps. They add enhancements to the apps. And it is a science unto itself, which is why we call it computer science. Computer science is primarily focused with understanding how to build applications or build hardware and the software to support that hardware. It is a world unto itself, but it has nothing to do with IT. We don't tend to program in IT. If we need a program, we send it over to the developers because it takes a lifetime of knowledge and skill to be able to properly and efficiently develop an application. The world of IT, information technology, is mostly focused on managing systems, making sure they stay up and running, knowing where the data is, making sure the data is safe, making sure people have access to the data and the applications they need to use, making sure that the applications written by the developers and upgraded are given to us and we're able to deploy them with the latest upgrades, and making sure that all of those systems and operating systems and everything else are properly patched and constantly monitored and managed. That's IT. Notice that the IT side of things, I didn't say build an app. I didn't say I needed to program anything. I just needed to manage those systems. Now there is, however, I won't say it's a middle ground, but there's a set of skills in IT that you need to be able to optimize all of the things I just mentioned for IT. Being able to make sure the cloud continues to run, to make sure you monitor systems, to make sure you can react to anything that happens on the network. And that's generally by using some type of automation. So whenever I talk about somebody creating code in the world of information technology, that code is really scripting. It's really automation. It's really building out a way to do all the things we have to do in IT, but do them without you having to physically sit down at a keyboard and type in things. So if you need to upgrade a user's workstation, there should be an automated system to upgrade that workstation. If there is a way we need to push out a set of updates to 150 routers, that should be automated. I'm not going to log in to 150 routers and manually upload the code and manually reboot it. You're not going to do that. It needs to be automated through a series of scripts. So the skills that are going to be important for you in IT, and I guarantee you these skills will differentiate you in IT. If you are very good at these skills, you will be head and shoulders above anybody else that are trying to get these jobs, is you need knowledge in either and or PowerShell and or Python. Those are the two that will really, really help you with what you need to know. I'm pretty good with PowerShell. I'm okay with Python. I need to do more with Python, but the more you do with it, the better you'll get, the more you automate, and the better you will be positioned to get the next better job along the way. I have more scripting that I do. Historically, I have created applications. I used to have a company where I built my own apps. Didn't really enjoy it that much, is why I don't have the company anymore. But I built network monitoring apps using Novell Networks API and Visual Basic. Very simple, but it did the job, did exactly what we needed it to do. And I've done some Visual C++. I've done some Swift. I've done some other type of scripting with PHP. I've done batch files and shell scripts. I've created macros and automations in different operating systems. And I think once you learn how to automate with PowerShell and or Python, that you can apply those techniques to many of these other ways of automation, like batch files and shell scripts and other types of macros. It just becomes the same. Oh, there's a for loop in Python is the same as a for loop in a shell script. It's the same idea. The syntax is obviously a little different, but the concept is the same. And once you know the concepts, you can apply them across all of these different automation systems. So that's why I tell people, if you want to work in IT, focus on automation. Today, that's PowerShell and Python and some of the others that sit around it. But if you are interested in building applications, you need to be in a different room. You need to be looking at a different career that deals only with application development. There's not really a job that combines building applications and managing an infrastructure. They would love to be able to do that, but every time they've done it, it's been a disaster. It doesn't work that way. What they really need in IT, especially in the world of cloud, is a way to use Python to automate the cloud. If you can use Python and automate the cloud, people love to see that on a resume. You're going to get the job. That's a very powerful skill to have. That's where I would recommend. I think that would help as well. This is a sad question. You'll know why in a moment. It says, what are some of your hobbies? Well, I like to live stream. I like to write books, and I like to build out video courses. I don't have time for anything else. That's what we do. That's it. I maybe get an hour or two at night to do some type of online gaming, but that's kind of it. The rest of the time, we're just busy doing this stuff. Eventually, this will slow down. We'll get in a groove, and there's a plan later on to maybe free up some time so that I can learn how to be a bad golfer, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it takes to be a bad golfer, but maybe I'll work on that as we ease into it. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. Because right now we're just doing it. We're just trying to make it happen. Kind of a challenge. Let's see. This along those same lines. Another. You don't think it's a funny question, but it is a funny question to me. Let me find it. So I saw it go by. Maybe I will hunt it down. It's one of those. There's a lot going by on the screen. I was talking about football earlier. Thank you, Blaine. You've hit it. You've hit it right on the nose. We need a website just for American football too. If there isn't one already, there's got to be one, right? That I can't talk with the accent. So that's not going to happen. Other questions. Hey, can I take food to the testing center? There's someone after my own heart. I would love to be in an exam and just eat some barbecue ribs. I think that would be amazing. This is why they don't allow it. You can take the food to the testing center, but then you're going to have to throw it away before you go into the room. Nope, can't take any food, can't take any water. They don't let it in the room. Unfortunately, sorry about that. You'll have to eat your ribs afterwards once you pass your exam. How often have I been required to write scripts, if any? All the time. It's not really required. It's your boss comes to you and says, we've just been informed that the 150 firewalls that we are using have a significant vulnerability in their VPN. This happened last week with a manufacturer, and we need to upgrade every single one of them. Go, get it done quickly. Go as fast as you can. Well, I could manually type and log into all 150 of those devices, manually upgrade the patch, manually reboot the device, and then wait for it to come back, and then view the information that it's working okay once it reboots. I could do that, or I could write a script once that will do this 150 times for me and just sends me a note when it's finished and tells me the status when it got done. That's much more reasonable to me. And that's why it's not a requirement for me. I guess it sort of is, because I don't have time to go to 150 routers and firewalls to do that. But it is something that will free you up to do other things that make a lot better sense for your time. So it's almost like a normal part of your job. It eventually just becomes, let's look at every single thing I have to do. Which one of these can I automate? I just did this because I switched over the process for you. When you purchase a book from my site, I send you an email when the book ships, if you're buying the physical version. And when it started, there weren't a lot of people buying physical books. So I would manually in the morning, I'd get the notification that was sent. I'd send out a note to people manually saying, hey, your book's on the way. That was sort of, there was some little bit of automation there, but not much. But then it grew much bigger. And we ended up getting a lot of people. Every day I needed to inform a lot of people these books are on the way. So I just wrote an automated system that would grab the information I needed, parse it out, put it into an email form, send the email, and then just let me know the email was sent. These types of things happen all the time. It's not a requirement, but sure, it made my life a lot easier. And often that's really what we're trying to do, is make your life so much easier. You need to go home, spend time with your family, do the things you want to do rather than logging in manually to 150 devices. Because if you don't know how to script, you don't know how to automate, it's not even an option for you. You're now logging into 150 devices. You should have already figured out how to integrate with that device. Does it have an API? Does it have a REST-based API that I can use to send information and have it perform certain tasks? How do I not know how to do that already? I should be prepared now so that tomorrow when somebody walks in and says, oh, we got to upgrade the code on all 150 of these. No problem. I got it. I'll do a quick script. We'll test it in the lab. We'll make sure it works and we'll roll it out. That's what we need to do. As I said, you never finish. It's constant motion. You're constantly learning. You're constantly learning about technology. You're constantly learning new skills. You're constantly learning, period. You have to keep doing that. So I would highly recommend you get familiar. Along those lines, some of you are mentioning, since we're talking about physical books, hey, how do I upgrade to the book? You can, if you bought the digital version of any of these books, like you buy the digital version of the course notes and you think, man, it'd be great if I had the actual book and I could take along with me. So much bigger. I could use this. It's a better form for me to read. Just let me know and I'll send you an upgrade coupon that takes the price you spent for the digital and provides it towards the physical so you can get the physical for a discounted price. More than happy to do that. Just send me either open a ticket in your member area of the website or hit the contact us link at the top of the page. It all comes to me. So we'll figure out the best way to do it. Also, Javier asks, do also do Live Network Plus study groups? Yep, we did one last week. We have another one next month. You can always find the study group breakdown and when we're going to be doing the next one. Go to professormesser.com/calendar or professormesser.com/events. You can also, if you're already on our Discord, there's an events channel in the Discord that tells you when the next one is going to be. So either one of those. I always update them all at the same time so you know exactly when that is going to happen. Can I use your Network Plus as study material for the CCNA? You can, but you're going to fail because it's not CCNA material. It might help with certain topics associated with the CCNA, but it should certainly not be your only resource towards the CCNA. As I always mention, you should be studying for material that is specifically written for the exam that you're planning to take. Do not use older material. Do not use material from a different exam version. And I don't recommend using my Network Plus materials to study for the CCNA unless you're using it as one of the many things that you're working on towards learning the things you need for the CCNA. ISEC Tech says, sir, I know it's bad when they start with sir. On your website, I can't find the physical 601 Security Plus book. Well, let's fix that, shall we? I think I can find a way to break that down. Well, we're on my site already. We were already looking at the study resources. So we'll go here. Under the Security Plus pull down menu is an option for course notes, practice exams. Just click any one of those and it will take you to my page with all the Success Bundle information. So there's the breakdown. So if you want to get any of the digital products, these are the digital edition PDFs. There they are. But if you want the physical version, these are tabs at the top. Click. Here's the tab. And here's the physical edition books. So you can easily go back and forth between both of those. And as I mentioned, when you get the physical edition, you get the digital one for free. So it's sort of combining both of those together. When you look at those, they're all on the website. You'll find that link. That's really the best way to do it, is to go to that link and it will tell you exactly where to go. And this one, this is a pretty good one. And this is me all day long during the exam. How do you keep calm during the exam? I don't. I am not a good test taker. I am full of anxiety in that test room. I am hyped up. I am nervous. I'm worried about my financial investment into this exam. I am walking in the room and it's just a buzzing noise in my head. I can't understand what I'm reading. I've often just jumped into the exam. Let's go, 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 go. Maybe if I hurry and do the exam, it will help. It does not help. That's not good. That's not a good way to do it. Because what happens is I start the exam and we go to the first question on the exam. And let's say the question I'm going to go back to the question we looked at it for. Now, the first question, the exam comes up, and it says, which of the following would be the best way to provide a website login using existing credentials from a third-party site? Federation 802.1x eat fast. What was the question again? Okay, hold on. Let me do this again. Okay, here we go. Which of the following would be the best way to provide a website login using existing credentials from a third-party site? Was that in Spanish? I don't know what I'm reading, and it's just not registering. I'm so nervous, and there's so much anxiety that I don't know what that sentence says. Happens every time when I try to rush into this. And so I tell people, don't rush into it. You're setting yourself up for failure. Fortunately, there are things you can do. So what I've started doing when I go into these exams is the first thing I do is I go early so I can sit in the lobby. And they've even said, well, there's nobody in there right now. You just want to get started? Like, no, give me 5 minutes. So I sit in the lobby, maybe flip through course notes, whatever I happen to have. Maybe not. Maybe just scrolling Reddit, not really reading it, just scrolling through it like I normally do. Just be in the place. Just sort of soak in the environment and relax as much as you can. And then you can go up and say, okay, let's get started. And they'll take your picture and you sign the form that says, yep, let's go. And they give you everything you need. They take you in the room. You sit down for the exam. And here's where it helps, because now you're getting hyped up again. Now the nervousness has started again. But in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the exam, you have the opportunity to read through the CompTIA candidate agreement. If you've never seen this, and I would really recommend you have a look at it, search for the CompTIA candidate agreement in your favorite search engine and bring that up and have a look, just so you can see what will be presented to you in that first 10 to 15 minutes of the exam. Now, when they're showing you the candidate agreement in the exam room, it's not timed. It doesn't take away from your 90 minutes of the exam. It is timed to be 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is, because it's kind of big. You need to read through all of it. I'm still scrolling as we're talking. Scroll. You can read through the whole thing so that you know what's in there now. But when you sit for the exam, use that entire time. Use the 10 or 15 minutes they give you. You can read through it if you want again, and that might help you, at least give you a feel for how you're feeling. You could not. You can just look around. Just sit here while you're waiting for the 15-minute clock to finish up, so that you're in the room, you're in front of the system, you're reading through what's here. Candidate information means all information related to you collected by CompTIA or CompTIA agent, blah, blah, blah. And after a while, now suddenly the adrenaline starts wearing off. You're kind of, okay, we're kind of in the mode to take an exam. And then you can push, let's start and go. Let's start the exam and push that go button. That is my recommendation for those of you dealing with it, to be able to sit on the exam and not rush into it and try to get all the anxiety out, or as much as you can. That way, when you start the exam, you've already been sitting there for 20 minutes. So a lot of the worries you had at that point are over. And realistically, what happens if you fail? Nothing. Nobody dies. Nobody looks at you funny. Nobody points and laughs. Nobody cares. All they care about is that you're going to try again if you fail. That's all we care about. You're only a loser in this part if you stop right then. What you do if you fail, and I've failed certification exams before, it happens. You pick yourself up, you go away. In fact, if you go back online and look through the exam results, you can pull those up online. They used to give you a piece of paper. They don't do that anymore. All of your exam results are online, and it will tell you when you took the exam what sections you did not complete successfully, which ones you got wrong. So that might say, wow, there's a lot in domain 2 I got wrong. Half of what I got wrong was in that single domain. That's what I need to study up for next time. So if anything, you get some good intel by going through it once. And that's what I would recommend. So absolutely, that's my recommendation to you, is to kind of focus on that and use the time they give you, use the resources that are already part of the exam to give you an opportunity to settle down so that you can read through the questions and do the best you can. That's my recommendation. I want to thank John in the chat for the $2 super chat. Thanks, John. Thanks, Sigurd John. SH in the chat. Not very good at these, am I? But I appreciate it. No message on that, but we sure appreciate it, being able to do that. That's what I would. We always appreciate the super chats. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you telling us we're doing the right things. We even like it when you tell us we're doing something we shouldn't be doing, because that gives us direction too. As long as it's something constructive, I'm more than happy to take the feedback. Always useful. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I've been on the internet way too long to have my feelings hurt at this point. So it's all just bark all around. Everything just bounces off at this point. I am indeed Groot when it comes to the internet. Other questions. Scroll. I know we're way past our time, by the way. But I've just had such good questions on this list to be able to do this. Good one from Ash, who gets cash, in case you're wondering, says, hey, will this live thing be saved that we got here? Absolutely. The live stream we do here is automatically saved to YouTube when we're done. So you'll see it's already there and waiting for you. It takes a minute or two to process it, but then it's available. And then I create an podcast audio only version of this that's usually posted into the day, beginning of next day. So you'll have some of those available on there too. Not for nothing, but I'll take this question because I think that there's something more to this from Samuel, who says, will you include cybersecurity course sometime soon? Come on, Samuel. Come on, brother. This is the cybersecurity course. Maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe Samuel's got a point. Samuel's called me out. I think the question's more about other cybersecurity, like CySA, like Pentest Plus, like CISSP. Valid question. And the question still stands. The same answer I had before still stands. Like, I don't know. Every day it's different. Every day I have a different idea what the next thing would be. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. But we just don't know what it is yet. We might have, the next course we do might be security related. It might not be security related. It might be networking related. It might not be networking related. It might be cloud related. It might not be cloud related. I just don't know. We will see. We'll find out. This is a good one because I have a good answer for it, which is Adnan asks, hey, Professor, how does Security Plus as an exam test you? Well, I mean, I wrote the course, so it doesn't test me very well. Quite honestly, once you get to a point in your career, a lot of the technologies in Security Plus are no longer entry level or introductory to you. You've already installed a firewall and you've already configured the firewall and you've set up redundant firewall configurations with an active standby system. You've configured routing tables inside that firewall. You've configured it with VPN concentrators. You've done SSL decryption. Just setting up one device covers a huge amount of topics that you would normally find on this exam. And in my career, I've been lucky enough to work for some of these fantastic companies. I was very early on working with next generation firewalls before anybody knew what a next generation firewall was. And that really positioned me very well for security related courses like this one. So where else are you going to find someone teaching a security course who's actually done these things? So I think that's one of the advantages, or at least hopefully some value that I can bring to the table to help others, is that I've been in these data centers. I've done the long nights. I've had the problems with these technologies. I've had to troubleshoot these scenarios. I've had to implement all of these different technologies you see in this exam. And eventually you'll do that too. And you'll find, looking back in 10 years, well, I thought it was hard back then. Now it's what I do every day. And that's IT. And as soon as you get to that point, now you've got to learn the next thing. Now you got to learn cloud. Now you got to learn Python. Now you need to know more about PowerShell. Now you need to know the next thing, and all of the other pieces that are there. So that's kind of fun when you never have a dull day. It's never the same thing day after day after day. And that's one of the great benefits of IT. It's one of the great challenges of IT. If you're someone who loves to solve problems, you love to fix things, you love to figure out a puzzle, this is the job for you, because that's what you do every day. Sometimes the puzzles are easy. Sometimes the puzzles are hard. And sometimes the puzzles are so weird that you have to talk with other folks to see if it is weird as you think it is. And everybody puts their heads together and comes up with great ideas. That is exactly where you should go with this. On the other side of things, Jules asks, is it possible to pass that Security+ exam with no, zero, nothing experience in IT? And absolutely it is. People do this on my site every single day. Especially, take, for example, the folks that are in the Virginia, DC, Maryland area. Security+ is an enormously popular certification in that particular part of the world. And a lot of the people that need to get their entry-level job in that particular geography start with Security+. They have no experience in IT. They have no experience with anything technical. Security+ is their first cert, and they're able to do it. Is it a little bit harder than if you had A+ or Network+? Maybe a little bit, but it's not insurmountable, and you can certainly make up the difference. And I think that would be, for anybody trying to get into this line of work, trying to do more with security, or trying to just get that first job and it requires a Security+ certification, absolutely go get your Security+. That's a great place to start. It's a great place to get in. And then once you get that job that required the Security+, do what I did and backtrack towards a networking certification and or back towards the A+ certification. That's what I would recommend. So that is, I think, if you're challenging yourself and you want to get that next job, Security+, if that job wants Security+, just start with Security+. Don't spend time on those other certs. That's what the employer wants. Go get that one first. And it's absolutely reasonable to start with Security+, as long as you're willing to put in that extra time to fill in the gaps that you don't have from A+ or Network+. Fortunately, those gaps are already built into the Security+ exam objectives, so ultimately you're not losing anything. Just start with Security+, and you'll do just fine. That should be your goal. Well, I think that makes this a good place to stop right there. I've gone way over time. I normally do an extra hour at the study group. We managed to fit an extra in the after show there. And that's okay. I think it worked out pretty well. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your time in the first hour. We're now in the new year. We got a whole bunch more things to do throughout the year. It's going to be a fantastic year. I cannot wait to roll out the things we're planning to roll out this year. Can't wait to have the Security+ information and more study groups in Security+ that we're going to do throughout the year. If you have not signed up for our study groups to be notified, make sure you do that. There is a study group page on our website for all the replays. And on that page, I have a link where you can sign up for notifications so you know exactly when the next event is going to be. We thank you for being here. We appreciate everything you do, even when we're not here and doing this live. And we'll see you next time on the Security+ study group. Thanks, everybody.